This is the best.
Do you hear me?
Of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We have a lot to do today and 4 hours to do it in. Your phone calls in a moment, but if you'd like to call in now while we're telling you what you missed overnight, 855-242-7285. That is our number. Let's get to some headlines since we said goodnight last night. And what about it? They won the national championship. I mean, the real one, that is. So why not Alabama receive 150 Stone national championship rings? This is what it looked like as they came in. Certainly, the maker of those rings doing well off of Alabama. That is the fifth time in 9 years they've made rings for the Crimson Tide. Yeah, it's never happened before in the polo. Meanwhile, the losers, the UCF unveiled the national championship rings. What did they do? They beat Auburn in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. Bo Scarborough, not Bo Scarborough. Yeah, that is Bo Scarborough. Bo, what about it? Bo's got some rings. No fake rings. No UCF rings. The real rings. I'm done talking about anything other than the national champs because I think too much of that has gone on. I started it many months ago with UCF. I'll let others finish it, but we all know where the real national champion resides, and that is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. They were at the White House 2 weeks ago. I didn't see anyone else being honored by the president for winning the college football national championship. Let's talk about today. Lars Anderson from The Athletic. Talk about spring football, what crowds mean. Cole Cubelic, new show on WJOX in Birmingham, three-man front. Precedes us on our one of our flagship stations for a very long time. And Wes Rucker on Jeremy Pruittâ. How did his conversation about the fans go over in Big Orange Country? Read a lot of commentary up there. One by Marvin West, a longtime sports columnist, used to be at the News Sentinel, said that Jeremy Pruittâ should have been thanking fans if there was any mistake made. It was by him doing away with a fan day beforehand, signing autographs and bringing a lot of young people into the program. That did not happen this year. One reason why maybe the crowd was not up to Jeremy Pruitt's wishes. Anyway, welcome to Tuesday. Appreciate Peter Burns for being in here yesterday. Peter's been here twice in the last couple of days, and I've been the same state both times. Last Thursday, as I told you, Friday Mark Cubelic and I were in Athens doing some stories, and last night I was in Atlanta hosting a banquet, American Football Coaches Association banquet. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but saw a lot of great legendary coaches at the Georgia Aquarium last night, so that's why Peter was here yesterday. So let's get to phone calls here at 855-242-7285, 855-242-7285. I know the big conversation everywhere yesterday involved Jalen Hurts, so a wide variety of conversation on exactly what is going to happen. I know Booger was here last night saying he thinks Jalen Hurts will be the starter. I was talking to Andy Staples yesterday as well from Sports Illustrated. He doesn't think he'll be there at all. So that's how far two of the most respected voices in college football on completely different sides of the coin on Jalen Hurts' future. A lot of other stories going on. I heard a lot about the Dogs last night in Georgia, especially the new quarterback Fields. We'll talk about that as well. Your phone calls, as I mentioned, 855-242-7285. That is where we are, and let's start with Thomas. Good afternoon, Thomas.
Yeah, Paul. I'm a big Tide fan, and I just want everybody to understand that Alabama has never based our season on one player. So the Jalen Hurts controversy, I mean, it's up in the air with me because Coach Nick Saban is
hey, hold on a second, Thomas. I mean, one thing we try to do here is keep it real. Let's not blame a bunch of people. Do you realize why this story became a big deal? Do you have any idea?
No.
I'll explain it to you. His father made it a big deal. Jalen Hurts' father, in the interview with Matt Hayes, we had Matt on Friday night, said if my son doesn't win the starting job, he will become the biggest free agent in college football history. It was already a big story because of Tua coming in and saving Alabama's season in the national championship game, but Coach Hurts is the one who turned this into a DEFCON 1 controversy. So I asked the callers tonight, say whatever you want, but let's not start blaming this person or that person, because ultimately Mr. Hurts turned this into a big deal, a very, very big deal. I've never heard a father talk that way about his son. Well, maybe Earl Woods did in talking about Tiger Woods. Let's go to Steve in Knoxville. Steve, welcome to the program and good afternoon.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Yeah, I was hanging around Knoxville and Neyland Stadium this weekend, and I was kind of wondering myself something you said about Jeremy Pruittâ talking about these fans, and, I was a little surprised. In fact, I thought the turnout was actually really good for an orange and white game. It didn't break the Guinness Book of World Records, which they have before, but Jeremy, I think you're right. He's going to have to Knoxville is the easiest town in the world to dupe people in, okay? We'll take it forever.
But Steve, they announced 60-something thousand. I mean, let's say conservatively there were 50,000 people there, which 50,000 people or 40,000 or 60, it doesn't matter. That's still a lot of people for a spring game. I do, and I haven't talked to Jeremy Pruittâ, and I wish he would clarify his comments if he feels like he was taken out of context. I think they worked hard, at least the school did, because we had Jeremy on and we were instructed, hey, ask him about the spring game. We want a big crowd. Yeah, sure you want a bigger crowd because it helps your product. But overall, I think it came off, and some of the coaches with whom I spoke to last night in Atlanta were all very critical of him. Now, privately, I might add. But I think you really ought to thank the fans who showed up. Don't ever bite the hand that feeds you when you're a football coach.
Yeah, that's kind of stopped feeding you as much as it used to. Because,
exactly.
I mean, Knoxville's been through a disaster for 20 years. And we're just tired. And you come in here and start giving us a hard time. I mean, you're right. I just wonder if he was trying to fire the fan base up, okay, but it seemed to backfire a little bit because, we're going to have to see a football team for once, I think. When the fans stopped leaving, I mean, you could pack that stadium with 100,000 people in a losing season, not so much anymore.
No, and by the way, thanks for the call, Steve. Embrace your fans. And I asked Jeremy Pruittâ this question. What did he do to try to enhance the crowd? Did he do anything special? Or did he just expect people to show up to watch a product which has not been very good in recent years? Put a good product on the field, and the fans will follow. I've spent 4 years of my life in Knoxville. They will support a winner. They'll support a team that fights hard. Just let the PR people and the marketing people and the ticket people worry about the crowds. You worry about getting Tennessee back to a legitimate bowl game again. How about that, Jeremy? Let's get back to the calls at 855-242-7285, 855-242-7285. And Candy is in Georgia, and you are on the air. Go right ahead, Candy.
Hey, Mr. Paul, how you doing today?
We are doing fantastic. Thank you.
Wonderful. I don't want to beat a dead horse here because I just heard a gentleman already talking about the Jalen Hurts controversy. I was going to get your opinion on it, but you've already voiced that. So, like I said, I don't want to keep going with it. I personally feel like a statement like that, being made is a little brave, because what program do you think is going to want someone that after their father makes a statement like that? You know, what school do you think would pick him up?
Candy, not only that, and I want to make sure I say this clearly. I know Jalen Hurts very well. He's been here many times on the show. I've seen him. He is an outstanding young man, and he has done a lot of really good things for the University of Alabama. But a week after his father made that statement, he picked a bad time to get outplayed by the third-string quarterback. And,
right, yes, sir.
And I can't speak for Alabama fans, but the ones with whom I've spoken at this point really don't care what he does. They're tired.
Right, yes,
they're tired of the soap opera.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I personally am not an Alabama fan. I'm married to an Alabama fan and surrounded by Alabama fans, and love all of them dearly. Don't know how, but I'm an Auburn fan. But I just take it as a why would that? He's a good quarterback. Yes, unfortunately, you got Tua there, and now his little brother coming in right behind him. So the issue is what's going to happen next, and, poor Jalen, because I know he's a good kid. I've read good things about him, seen good things, and I wish well for him, but as a parent, I wouldn't do that to my child, put their possible career on the line because I'm mad about something.
Yeah, and Candy, let me make it clear, in speaking to Matt Hayes the other day, Mr. Hurts answered questions, but he still gave a very controversial quote, and if he leaves, then Alabama will survive. At some point, Nick Saban has to determine, is Jalen Hurts worth a possible or potential team-dividing controversy? That is a question that only he can answer. We will take a break. More of your phone calls, 855-242-7285. When we come back, we'll hear from the mouth of the South, Matt from Gainesville, Georgia.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Anyway, welcome back. We were talking during the break about Jeremy Pruittâ, and again, the look keeps getting worse for him because people don't understand now. You're getting the second and third dissemination of what he said or what he meant. I wasn't there. I've seen the video. Looked like he was calling out people who showed up. I'm sure that's not really what he was saying, but that's how it sounded. Let's get some reaction at 855-242-7285. And Matt is next up in Georgia.
How was Atlanta, Paul?
I tell you what, I think you know my affinity for Birmingham because I lived there a great deal, but yeah, I'm getting pretty close to equal affinity for the city of Atlanta. I think that's becoming one of my favorite places.
Yeah, Atlanta's a great place. It's a great place. A couple of things. You're going to be surprised what I'm going to say here, but I feel bad for Jalen Hurts. I'm tired of these fathers, and extreme case point example, Lonzo Ball's dad or whatever his name is. You can coach your son, you can prepare your son, but let your son do the talking. You don't have to go out and make comments because it puts so much pressure on the kid to live up to it. He didn't have to say that. He just needs to shut up and let Jalen be Jalen. It just makes it harder for Jalen to go.
I agree totally with you. Yeah,
it's just, and then and you look at the ball kid in L.A. Look what it's just guys destroy. He's destroying his kids. The second thing I got to say is I'm gonna keep reiterating this point. And you went on the other day and you said, yeah, Matt, I asked around about Athens, and you're not the idiot we think you are, or whatever you said. But I can tell you from firsthand knowledge, and a lot of people in Athens, Jeremy Pruittâ has a temperament, a bad temperament. He would have gotten fired the year Mark Richt got let go if they didn't have intentions of letting Mark Richt go. If things don't go Jeremy Pruitt's way, he gets very volatile. Kevin Butler came out and said publicly that after the Georgia-Florida game, Jeremy's last year, that he had never seen a coach or a personnel act the way he did. And this is another point, case and example of Jeremy Pruittâ. $65,000 for University of Tennessee spring game, to me, considering the product they put out, is awesome.
he ought to be praising those fans, because as soon as he wins 10 ball games, that place will be packed. So, I'm just telling you, I think Jeremy's got a big temperament problem. I think you're going to come see it out. And Georgia did great on Saturday, 82,000 plus. I was picking on Alabama, but Alabama still had 70,000 plus. So, and it's crazy. It's awesome that the SEC has those strong numbers for spring games. Nobody in the country, I think Nebraska had more than 90,000, but it just says a lot about the SEC. But I'll shut up now, Paul, and go Dogs.
Listen, Matt actually made some points there. It was interesting. First of all, I do believe most universities enhance their spring game numbers a little bit. I've read some accounts of the Tuscaloosa crowd, of the Knoxville crowd, where veteran journalists have said the numbers looked a little more charitable than they were. But beside that, and that really is not the critical factor here, you should be happy with whatever you get. That is not the head coach's job, and I think we made that point very clear. Let's move along, and David is up next. David, go right ahead.
Yeah, I read one thing that Jeremy Pruittâ ought to be pretty thankful, or go after the people that do the scheduling on campus, because there was a Cirque du Soleil show going on at the same time in Thompson-Boling. So that was 14 or 15,000 people.
I had no idea. No, that is terrible planning. You're right.
Plus, there was a major Dogwood Arts Festival going on downtown. There was, 20, 30,000 people downtown.
Well, listen, though, David, I mean, the spring game is set. That is not a debatable game. You only have about two choices. If you're Tennessee, you want to play as in the middle to end of April, because early April is too cool, and you want to get it out of the way. So I don't know what else is on the calendar, but that's for the university to figure out.
Exactly. Plus, I read that 65,000 was the third largest that Tennessee's ever had.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, why I don't ask this to you, but Jeremy Pruittâ created a controversy that did not need creating.
Well, I think you heard him wrong. He was not dissing the people that were there. He was dissing the people that weren't there.
But here's the problem, though. It didn't come across. I know what you're saying, David, and that's why I would encourage Jeremy to put this to an. I think he ought to come out and clarify it. I'm sure he's busy. I don't know what he's busy with that he couldn't clarify that. But right now, people think he was knocking the folks who showed up, and you and I both know that's not exactly what he meant, but that's what it came across as.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Coach Fulmer probably pulled him to the side and said, "Hey, we're trying to get some boosters back here. Let's watch it."
Exactly. A great point. Thank you very much. Nolan is in Louisiana. Nolan, what do you say?
I think it's time for LSU to get rid of Coach Paul Manera, because the baseball team is stinking this year.
Nolan, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they play for the national championship last year?
Yeah, but they shouldn't have. Yeah, but they haven't won it since 2009.
Well, no, but my question was, who played for the national championship last year? I think the final game was LSU in Florida.
Yeah, but LSU shouldn't have lost that game against Florida.
Okay, let's say they shouldn't have lost. You're recommending, and I realize LSU's having a difficult season by their standards this year, but you're suggesting a change just because they're having a couple of bad weekends?
Yeah, but they thinking LSU might miss the SEC tournament this year after being in the championship game last year.
Listen, I don't claim to be an expert in college baseball. I watch it like everyone else, but deductive logic would tell me if you played for the championship last year and you're having a rough season, maybe you lost a lot of good players and you're in a transitional year. But again, what do I know? You want to make a change? You know what I suggest you do, Lowen?
What?
Call Joe Oliva.
Oh, they need to get rid of him too.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, they always tell lawyers, never ask a question you don't know the answer to. I just walked right into it. Hey, thanks for the call, no. Pat is in Nashville. How are you, Pat?
Hey, Paul. How you doing? I got a couple of comments to make. First, I want to send out condolences and sympathies to the people here who went through the Waffle House.
Oh, man, that was terrible.
Also to the people in Toronto.
Yeah, it's been a tough couple of days.
It's a crazy, crazy world. My first comment is, I think your two best callers, you know how Jim and all of them call in and pat themselves on the back and say how great they are? Your two best callers, number one is Squirrel. I love the way he rides Jim like a pony, beats him down like the girl he is. And then Jerome in Birmingham, he's the best. I like that high-pitched voice calling you Paul one time and Finebaum the next time.
He is good.
And will you tell John Hayes that Spurrier's last name is Spurrier and not Sperrier? And then tell me how Vandy's going to do this year. What's your prediction for Vandy? 6-6?
Yeah, I'm really. I am somewhat concerned about the direction of the Vanderbilt program right now.
Well, I've been a fan for 40 years. I'm still concerned. But Shermer's a lot better than he was as a freshman. He was slow getting rid of the ball, but who knows? But anyway, in the grand scheme of things with what's happened the last couple of days, it doesn't matter who your quarterback is or how many people show up for your spring game. I mean, life is precious. And
no, you're right about that.
So anyway, but thanks for taking my call, and have a good day, bud.
Have a great day yourself. Thank you very much. And so true about some of the events that have been going on in our country. Thank you for the call. Let's check in with John in Tennessee. How are you, John?
I'm doing great, Paul. How are you doing?
Quite well. Thank you.
First, I want to elaborate on Coach Pruittâ's post-game comments after the orange and white game. I think they're completely warranted. I don't know if it's just this participation trophy generation that seems to have a big problem with it, but we just got rid of a gimmick-speaking, cliche talk, champions of life, five-star hearts coach. We need somebody in there that's not going to accept mediocrity. And
well, you know what? I agree with everything you said there.
And I think Coach Pruittâ's exactly what we need. This is the University of Tennessee. We're a blue-chip program. We're not going to accept. We're only going to settle for the best. And I think he's going to get the best out of him. I think Coach Pruittâ is the exact right man for the job.
Well, thanks for the call. And again, aside from the interpretation, I would agree. I think Butch Jones was a BS artist and borderline Carney Barker. And I would prefer someone to come in and be brutally honest and cut to the core, which Jeremy Pruittâ has done. Did he mince words? Can we quibble about a few words? Yeah, but I still believe in him, though, and I think Tennessee needs some straight talk after P.T. Barnum was in town for 5 years. We will take a break. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. All of that, a number of guests as well. We're off and running on a Tuesday.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Ryan, I don't know how else to say this, so I'll just say it.
What is it, Linda?
I think we should see other people.
Are you breaking up with me on a roller coaster?
Well, we do have a lot of fun. Maybe we should stay together.
An emotional roller coaster? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I just need a little me time.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
855-242-7285. Let's go back to the calls. We head to John in Virginia. You're on the air. Hey, John.
Yes. Let's say Jalen Hurts doesn't get the starting job. Will he be eligible to transfer?
Well, yeah, I mean, he can transfer. I think it just, whenever he transfers, he's going to have to sit out a year. Now, it depends on, if he waited beyond, I think even if he left after a game, he'd probably be okay, but he can't leave too late in the season. He'll have to decide in and around the beginning of the year to only miss 1 year. Now, here's the conundrum he has. If he sticks around and plays this year and graduates in December, and he could then play next season as a graduate transfer. He'd have only 1 year left, though.
Okay. What about Nick Saban? Could he have something to do with it?
Well, ultimately, Nick Saban is going to have to answer the bell to the Hurts family at some point in time.
What I'm trying to say, could Nick Saban say, no, this is not a transfer that I want to get?
Well, listen, Nick Saban can do whatever he wants. I mean, he can try to stall this or not. War Daddy is up next in Knoxville. How are you, War Daddy?
Hey, I'm doing great, Paul. I'm going to have to start calling in a little bit more. I got a KJB interrogation calling in on who's War Daddy Zach? Who are you?
Hey, I mean, you leave this show for a couple of weeks, and we have 6 new people working the board.
Yeah, what about that? That's okay, though. You know I call in when I got something to say, and when I don't, I sit back and listen and laugh and enjoy myself. But, Paul, I gotta weigh in on this Jeremy Pruittâ thing, and another thing that kind of bothered me. Listen, I'm behind Jeremy Pruittâ. He's what we need. He's no nonsense. I believe in time he'll get us on the right track. But quite frankly, I would like to believe that if the guy had the chance to do that segment over, he would reword what he said. I really believe he was really trying to get after his team, because if you read the whole context, he was talking about how some players out there quit, and he was disappointed with them, how they didn't compete, and he wound up working that in with the fan base. Now, I heard this yesterday, Paul, on the Sports Source with John Pennington here locally, and you correct me if it's wrong, Paul. Back in, was it 2003 that the Crimson Tide was coming off a losing season, like a 4-loss season? Does that sound right?
Well, 2003, they would be coming off of a 10-win season.
Okay, well, must have misunderstood that. But one year they were coming off
the next year, they would be coming off of a 9-loss season.
Okay, that must have been it. And they were pointing out how that the following spring game, the A-Day game, they had a little over 30,000 people in the stands.
I think that's right.
For a spring game. And it's just like Jeremy just did not register the fact this is a program wandering in the desert, been through more coaches than Carter's got liver pills, and yet these people announced at 60-something thousand. Let's say it was 45. That's fine. I mean, they were there. They were enjoying themselves, and he just got a little negative, and it struck me the wrong way. But Paul, don't you think if he had to do it over again, he would reword?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's why I would. No one's asking me. I don't work for the University of Tennessee, but it's Tuesday now. This has been going on since 4:00 on Saturday. It seems like you got a lot of smart people to work there. There's been all this conversation about it. Why not correct the record if that's not what he meant?
Well, that's a good point. That's a fair point. Now, I guarantee you, I would have to think that Philip Fulmer had to call him aside at some point and say, Jeremy, you're my boy. I'm behind you. You're doing it the right way, but you don't want to start criticizing our fan base. They've been there for it.
Here's the problem, War Daddy, and we're now talking on Tuesday afternoon. I've read articles about it. You've listened to talk shows about it, and it's getting late in the day to correct the record, and as this story gets passed along, I was on a show yesterday. They said, "Hey, what about Jeremy Pruittâ calling out the fans?" And and that's not exactly true. It's not really close to being true, as you said. But that becomes the narrative, and that's why someone listening right now. It's not like we're not on some television set in the football office, suggest that he makes issue a statement. Do whatever you want to do. I don't care. But don't let it fester if it's not true. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a great point, Paul. Listen, I know he's a no nonsense type of guy, and we do need that. Okay, but at the same token, I think coming from Nick Saban, and if you've been around Nick Saban and he's your mentor, Nick can say anything he wants to about fans. He's talked about fans leaving the game early.
Oh, yeah.
He's been critical of them. But he's Nick Saban.
Well,
he's earned the right to do
it. I mean, by the way, I thought he was
Yeah.
completely wrong when he called out the fans a couple of years ago. But, trying to argue down Nick Saban, you might as well give up because, listen, I've used more extreme examples, but no matter what Saban says, there's 100,000 people that will call in and defend him.
Yeah, and Jeremy Pruittâ needs to know this. The opening game, even over in Charlotte against West Virginia, Big Orange Nation will be there in grand numbers. You can count on that.
Sure.
And then in the open game, there'll be 102, 455 there. And Jeremy just needs to realize that Tennessee fans we're aching, we're hurting for a winner, for a team that goes out there and at least shows us they're going to fight for victory, fight for championships. And he won't have to worry about who's in the stands.
No, you're
going to be there.
I know that, Ward. Hey, great to hear from you again. We're up against a break. We need to rush out of here because when we come back, call your friends. I hear the siren about to blast off. There's a Tammy alert. She's next.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Tammy is next. Tammy?
Paul?
Yes?
Hey, I want to comment on this Tennessee thing because you know good and well that coach that they got now came from Alabama, right, under Nick Saban?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why is it that he can talk about the fans, he can do this and he can do that, but when Nick Saban did it, nobody said anything. So how about you telling me why everybody's making a big deal about it because the Tennessee coach has something to say?
Well, because Tammy, the answer is easy.
What is it? He's not Nick Saban. He's not Alabama.
The answer is that the media is prohibited from criticizing Nick Saban. It is simply verboten.
Well, I'm here to tell you that man up there can say what he wants. He's the head coach, and if he wants to say what he wants to say about the fans, he can say what he wants to say about the fans. He wants more people there. That's what he wants. And the reason he said what he said, because you ain't going to get no more people there if he ain't got them boys quit playing. He just told you why. The boys quit playing. The boys on the Tennessee team quit. So if the boys quit, and they won't play, how does he think he's going to get his fans in there to represent the school that he's supposed
Tammy,
to?
my question to you, and this is maybe a better, why do you care about any of this?
Because because y'all sitting up here criticizing this coach, wanting him to come on here. He ain't got to do nothing except coach them boys is quitting. That's all he's got to do is coach them boys is quit. Because of one thing, if he was involved with the coach and them boys was quitting.
Hey, Tammy, may I ask you a question? Tammy, come on. May I ask you a question?
Ask me a question. You can ask me anything you want to ask me.
I heard from you at the end of last season after the Georgia win and after the Alabama win, but I did not hear from you after the Georgia loss and the UCF loss. Can you explain those two games?
Yeah, our boys quit. War damn Eagle. Make me sick.
Craig is up next. How are you, Craig?
Hey, how you doing, Paul?
Okay, thank you for the call.
Yeah, I want to chime in on that Jeremy Pruittâ thing again. Hey, you know, I know the media likes to bring it up like he's getting on the fans. He was actually getting on his team, just like War Daddy said. He was meaning that for his team, and everybody, y'all pretty much know that. He's putting out there actually for his team because his team, didn't play real good. And, yeah, he had the fans there, and but the Jeremy's no nonsense, and we like it. I'm glad to have him there after this, like you said, his last 4 years or 5 years of Bush Jones, all these cliches. But he was doing. He's been under Saban for several years. He's learned under him, and he puts it out there, and he's doing that for the team. That's basically what he's doing it for, and the media can take it and do what they want to with it, but it's for his team.
Well, here's what he said, and I've seen the video, and it's pretty much exactly how I'm going to read it. The subject of the crowd came up, and he said, "I don't know how many fans we had. What was it? Anybody know the number?" When he was told it was 65,000 people, he responded, "To me, it's kind of like our football team for the fans. The ones who were here, I'm proud they were here. They're fired up. They're ready to get going." Then there were some people who weren't here that had legitimate reasons they couldn't be here. And then there were some people that weren't here. Why weren't they here? It's kind of like our football team. I think we all need to look in the mirror and see who we want to be. So you tell me, what exactly does that mean?
Well, I mean, that's exactly what he was saying. I mean, he was talking to his team in general. Yeah, he had the fans there. I know the fans that was there. He was, he congratulated. It was okay that they was there. But
well, he said, and then there were some people who weren't here. Why weren't they here? I mean, he was definitely talking to the people that didn't show up.
Well, he might have been, but I think.
Wait, well, no, it's not. He might have been. He was. I mean, I just got through. I mean, I read you what he said. There's no. I mean, you don't need the Supreme Court to interpret the statement, do you?
Well, no. I mean, I know what you mean, but I think he just probably. I mean, it might have been misinterpreted, but I really do believe it was actually intended for the.
I just gave it to you verbatim. I mean, let's quit saying it was misinterpreted when I gave it to you verbatim. Let's. Aubrey is up next. What do you say, Aubrey?
How you doing, boss man?
We're doing great, thank you.
Yeah, pleasure taking my call.
Thank you.
I just had a question. Well, not even a question. I just had a comment, and then let you talk about it afterwards. At this point, to me, I'm an Alabama fan. At this point, to me, it seems like people are sugarcoating what's really going on with the quarterback situation. Clearly, Jalen's going to go. I think they're trying to keep him around long enough for whatever reason, but I mean, Mac Jones outplayed him in the spring game.
Sure did.
For people who were there, because from what I understand, they cut off the last, I guess, drive or two of the game on TV for the Georgia game. But for the people who were there, Jalen Hurts had a chance to come back and win that football game and not eat poke and beans, but he went 0 for 5 with an interception. His last series, and then 0 for 4. Throwing the ball his second to last series. Mac Jones turned around, threw a touchdown to put him up again, and his very next play was an interception.
Yeah, so you're right, Aubrey. Hate to run, but people don't have a good feeling about Jalen Hurts, and there is no sugarcoating it. He had a lousy game, and when Nick Saban said, "I'm not disappointed in Jalen Hurts," what do you think that meant? Versus, I love the way he played. I'll be right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
It was BYOG, bring your own guts. This is the best.
Do you hear me?
Of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And the second hour is live. Welcome back to the program. We've had a good one so far. A lot of activity, a lot of conversation. Let's keep going. And Philip is in Georgia. And you're on the air. Hey, Philip.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you for the call.
Well, I'm on a little bit of a hot streak lately. I've been calling the show for about 10 years and finally got on with Peter Burns last week and really enjoyed that. But I wanted to talk about your mock draft of callers.
Yes. What about it?
I feel like you need to expand. Quit dealing with Tammy and all them and get some new, fresh callers.
I agree.
Really expand your ratings, and let's get it going. I want to be that caller.
You know, I have to be honest, and everywhere I go, people ask me about Tammy, and I know this will sound maybe I don't appreciate her more or disappointed, but I just don't think Tammy is really that good of a caller.
Well, I enjoy
and she screams, and she can be funny sometimes. But there was no redeeming quality in that call she just had. I mean, that was like if you rank that compared to Jim from Tuscaloosa, that was like Jim's 987th best call.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed it because she's worried about Tennessee spring game having 65,000 people, and Auburn had about 19. I'm a Georgia fan. And she's worried about that. She needs to worry about how Georgia whipped their butts in the SEC championship. She needs to concentrate on that. Not
That's
worry
a good
about
point.
Tennessee fans.
Well, I'll tell you what, Philip. I think you've got a shot to make the list. Keep going.
Well, you kind of stumped me there.
Yeah, well, that's not. By the way, that did not help. I mean, a good caller has to be versatile. Unless your name is Daryl, where no matter what the host throws at him, he's sticking to the same script. Daryl is up next. What do you say, Daryl?
Absolutely. I would say that, in my opinion, Tammy's had one signature call in her career, and that was the SEC mascot. And that's pretty much it. I mean, you just nailed exactly what she is.
Listen, I feel like you're a pretty good connoisseur of callers. You've been around. I mean, wouldn't you agree with me that she really is somewhat of a one-trick pony?
I couldn't have said it any better, Paul. She screams, and she can be funny at times. But at times, she can go major overboard with stuff, too. I mean, But she is who she is. Paul, I told the Bammers a long time ago. I said, I guarantee you one thing right off the bat: Jalen Hurts would never play on Sunday. Okay, he would never play on Sunday. Can you start to see it, Paul? Can you get that feel?
Listen, I have been in his camp for a long time, and I'm not going to judge or define a career on a spring game. But if you can't get it together in a spring game, when are you going to be able to get it together?
Yeah, I know, but you know what? Alabama's they never had to. All of a sudden now they got to depend on stellar quarterback play. Never been the issue before. Just a game manager, all we needed, and we can roll, okay? It's changing, okay? That's a sign right there. Now they're requiring stellar quarterback play to be able to win. I'm telling you, man, that is another sign.
But Daryl, if you study the big games Alabama has had in the last couple of years under Jalen Hurts, it's been a roller coaster ride every time, and I think Nick Saban's tired of that.
Jalen Hurts is good with his legs, okay, but he's not going to beat you with his arms. You play him the same way Georgia played. You make him throw the football, and that right there puts you in the better.
So hey, tell me this, Daryl. Because and I realize he only showed so much, but from insiders in Athens, I'm hearing the moon is the goal, is the potential for Fields. What about you?
Well, I'll tell you like this, Paul. Like I said, I told Peter Bird yesterday. Spring games. Okay, first of all, Jake, it was the ones went up against the ones. Fields did not have to go up against the number one.
No, that's true. But that's not it, though. I mean, I'm talking to people that know that program, and I'm hearing unbelievably complimentary things about this young man.
Because he went out there in one spring game and went up against a second.
No, you didn't listen to me. Forget the spring game. I'm just talking about day to day.
We will see. I mean, who knows, Paul?
Listen, people know.
You got. I want to see him in a big time game. I'm
You'll
not
see him.
sold on him yet because I haven't seen enough of him.
Well, Daryl, once again, you haven't listened to a word I said. I'm talking about people who are there, who watch him practice, who watch him, who watch his demeanor. They watch him. I mean, he's only been there a couple of months, but they're still seeing in him things that these people have not seen in a long time, if ever, on that campus. I'm just telling you.
You know what? I'm not going to beat that drum, okay, because I learned from Auburn, okay, about beating drums like that.
We're trying to hype it. We're trying to hype you into this, Daryl.
And then you quarterback look like Johnson did for Auburn, the ball stayed on his face, and I'm not, he's got to earn. He's going to have to earn. Jay, let me say it like this. Jay Fromm will be the starter at Georgia for as long as he's healthy, okay? He will be, especially for this year. I mean, Fields going to get playing time, but he's still got to earn his stripes. But I want to say this about Jeremy Pruittâ. Tennessee people need to understand one thing, okay, with Jeremy Pruittâ. What you see is what you get, okay? If you got a problem with somebody that doesn't mind sticking their mind, and you're not going to like Jeremy Pruittâ. You don't have to worry about where you stand with him. He will let you know, but I'll tell you one thing. He was the defensive coordinator on the national championship team at Florida State. He was the defensive coordinator on the national championship team at Alabama. He knows what it takes to win. And you just need to let him do his thing, because I think he can have some success up there. I really don't want him to see him having any success. But this ain't no a dog and pony show like they had with Bush Jones. He ain't going to be nicey. He ain't going to impact you and tell you how great you are. He's going to expect things out of you, and that's just the way he is. I mean, he's cut and dry, and I kind of like that, but that's just exactly how he is. Now, I want to say one more thing real quick, too. I heard Phyllis call in last week about Jim, okay? And I want to ask you this. Jim is no doubt, I like Jim. You know that. I think Jim's always been a very important part of the show. The thing I don't get with Jim, and I want you to help me understand why Jim doesn't get this. What does it matter how old you are? What does it matter what people say about you?
Well, you know something, Daryl? How many times have you heard me talk to Jim? I try to help him, but he won't listen because he's too stubborn. He's too obstinate. Every time he talks about him not being old, he gets 10 years older.
And you know what? When you get mad about it, all you're doing is playing right into their hands.
He does not understand
Silence is what kills. Silence. Let me get on you.
But Daryl, there is not one person watching this show who cares how old Jim is.
Exactly.
I mean, no one cares. They don't care if he's 16 or 86.
And these people don't even know you. Why would you care about what somebody thinks that doesn't know you. I mean, if you put yourself out there on
What
the
Jim needs to do is to go back and listen to old Jim tapes from 10, 15 years ago when he was actually a good caller to the show as opposed to a caricature of his former self.
Well, when he gives you a hard time about not defending him, I wish he would like just understand that, it's your job to let callers say whatever they want to say.
Sure it is.
I mean, your job to manage the show. And doing that, I mean, that's he can't, I don't see how he can expect something like that. That's a little going overboard in my opinion.
Again, Daryl, you've never been a narcissist, have you?
This is what Jim needs to understand, okay? An old wise man once told me this, okay? I hate to say he graduated from Tennessee, but he once told me this. It doesn't matter what they're saying as long as they're saying something. See you, Paul.
Got it. Good stuff. The world according to Jim. Steve is up next in Birmingham. Hello, Steve.
Hey, Paul. I was just going to say I'm the age where I was lucky enough to get to see Coach Bryant in his starting in 1960 all the way through the great Nick Saban years, and been lucky enough to see the two greatest coaches in college football. And we need to just sit back and do like Coach Bryant did and let Nick Saban does it the same way. Let them battle it out. Let them see who's going to
listen, that sounds great there, Steve. I appreciate your history, but quarterback controversies are inevitable, and and we're not supposed to sit here and be quiet. This is a talk show. This is where people meet from all over the country to discuss. That happens to be one of the biggest issues in college football, whether Alabama fans or Nick Saban. I mean, Nick Saban acts like this is a media creation. It is not a media creation. It's something that he helped create by putting Tua in the national championship game.
Well, Paul, it ain't going to matter how much we talk. It's going to be decided.
Well, no. Hey, listen, Steve, Steve, it doesn't matter to me who he starts. I really don't care.
It doesn't matter to me either.
But don't come in here and say that Nick Saban doesn't care, because he does care, because he reacts to it every time he's in a press conference. And if you don't think Nick Saban is bothered by this conversation, he is, because it could potentially affect his team. It's a problem. This is not some minor deal. You've got one of his most prominent, if not the most prominent player he has. Now we're wondering whether he'll be around. And why are we wondering that? We're wondering that because the young man's own father gave an interview where he said what he did. That's the issue out there. Casey is in New Jersey. Casey, go right ahead.
Yeah, Paul, how you doing?
I am doing great, Casey. Has it finally warmed up in your area?
Yeah, I got some action. I had 2 days in the 70s 2 weeks ago. Then it rained for a week, and now we're back in the high 50s, low 60s. And I got some high school matches out there on the course now. So green grass is starting to grow here a little bit.
It's about time.
I wanted to get in and saw your. I saw on the Twitter that the Paul Finebaum show caller mock draft. A couple guys I thought were worthy of that list. Bobby from Birmingham.
Yeah, I agree with you. By the way, this is just for the record. I'm not one that tries to shirk responsibility, but this was John Hayes' opinion. Okay.
Oh, I got you. Okay, so I saw the list on the Twitter. Okay, yeah. So it's John Hayes. Well, John Hayes has got to put Bobby from Birmingham on that list.
I'll say this: it's more of a mock draft than it is opinion. I'd say if we have a draft today and we were to draft Finebaum callers,
okay, why would you leave Bobby off? Why would you leave Bobby off?
Paul. People are concerned about his age, his mobility. They don't know if he can really move outside the pocket.
So is that why you have Jim? Is that why you have Jim where he is, because of his age?
We're trying to build a future here, Paul. I mean, this isn't a flash in the pan draft.
Phyllis is in her 70s. She's your number one pick.
And don't forget, Jim's better than Ted Williams at hitting a baseball.
Well, yeah, Paul, believe it or not, there's an expansion franchise picking at number one this year, and they just want to develop some buzz, get some positive energy, get a Hall of Famer in there.
Jim, John, answer me this one question. Is this the NFL draft or is this the Spurrier League draft?
The Alliance of American Football, yes.
Spurrier League?
Spurrier.
Also, Paul and John, I wanted to. I think your show on May 16th is going to be awesome at the Regions. I'm looking forward to that.
Be great. Yeah, I can't wait. We're doing our show from Birmingham that day. A lot of the coaches will be there. A lot of golfers. A lot of excitement.
That's going to be awesome. And I'll give you a call in the coming days. Maybe we'll start talking pre-U.S. Open talk.
You got it. Hey, thanks, Casey. Always great to hear from you, Casey in New Jersey. We are going to talk to Lars Anderson shortly. We are going to talk to you when we come back at 855-242-7285. Back with more.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to our program. Let's continue. And Squirrel is on the phone. Hello, Squirrel.
Hey, how are you doing today?
Okay.
I was really disappointed in Tammy's call. She bailed on you. I mean, first question you asked her, boom, she was gone. So, yeah, I hear she's a Mississippi girl now.
I think you're right about that. I don't know. I mean, listen, I think it's fun to talk to her, but that was a typical late stage Tammy call. Bad.
Well, she'll be calling back in a few months talking about how Auburn's going to win the national championship this coming fall. So, just around the corner. And it was ironic. I heard you mentioning Jim and some controversy about Jim's age and things of that nature.
Well, I just said I don't know why Jim cares what anyone thinks.
You're exactly right. And nobody cares about anybody's age on this show. What's so funny about Jim is that he lies about it, and we catch him in lies over and over again. And that's just what's kind of amusing. And speaking of being amusing, I had a poll last week. And I asked a simple question. Based on his voice alone, nothing you've heard about him hanging out with Joe Namath and parking Rocky Marciano's car and things of that nature. Based on his voice alone, how old do you think Jim is? And I got 200 votes. I mean, not 199, not 201. We got 200 votes.
And what were the results?
Well, there was 4 categories, age 40 to 49, 50 to 59, 60 to 69, or 70 above. I'm going to ask you those 4 questions, then I'm going to tell you the answer. Out of the 40 to 49, out of 200 votes, how many do you think he got for the 40 to 49 range?
No, the question again was, Squirrel?
How old do you think Jim is?
Okay. I'm going to say
like Finebaum family.
Okay, among 40 to 49, I'm going to say. Is there a specific
200 votes?
Is there so what? I mean, I'm not sure I understand.
Out of 200 votes, he had 4 categories: 40 to 49.
I get it. I'm sorry.
69 and 70 and above. Out of the 40 to 49, out of 200 votes, how many do you think voted for age 40 to 49?
None.
0. Okay, age 50 to 59, how many do you think voted for?
None.
Okay, that's easy. 60 to 69, how many voted for him in that age?
This is where in Vegas you're supposed to cash in your chips, but I'm tripling down. I'm going to say none.
0, and so that means 200 for the 70 or above.
I can't believe it. I won the lottery.
You were close. The actual results are 40 to 49 out of 200 votes. 4 people thought he was in the 40 to 49 range.
Okay.
And Jim probably was one of those votes, so that means 3 actual people.
Hey, Squirrel, stop mumbling. Nobody cares about your stupid polls. I mean, do you have any subject besides knocking on Jim or other voters?
Georgia?
The village idiot. Yeah, the guy named Squirrel, Madison, Mississippi.
Oh, my God.
I mean, do you have any subject other than to cut down
Why did you block me, Matt? Matt, why did you block me?
Because I'm tired
I
of
asked you
your
the simple
stupid
question.
polls.
I asked you one simple
question. Do you
question.
even root
You
for
beat
a
your
college
wife.
football team? I mean,
Pardon me?
you're an idiot, dude.
I actually
You
played
sit here and
college
back.
Hey, listen. I'm going to say this again. The only way we can do this is if one of you speaks.
Let Squirrel.
No. You jumped on my call, Matt. Go ahead.
No, you go first there.
Okay, Squirrel, go ahead and respond.
To what? To this idiot? I mean, what do you want me to respond to? He's a buffoon. I mean, I was in the middle of a very serious scientific poll here.
Oh, yeah.
Scientific.
But go ahead, Matt. What's on your mind, Matt?
Scientific. I mean,
Hey, Matt, let me ask you a question here. Why are you so defensive of Jim?
I'm not defensive of Jim. What I'm saying is I'm sick and tired of Squirrel. He brings no subject to the show. All he does, he calls about a poll bashing on the guy who we don't know if he can help himself or not.
I've talked about other things, Matt. I've talked about fishing.
What?
I've talked about movies. I've talked about sports occasionally.
This ain't a movie show, but this is the SEC Network. We talk
I
about
don't need
football.
you to tell me what kind of show it is, Matt. I don't need some newcomer stepping up in here and telling me what I can talk about.
Who do you root for? Who do you root for?
Who do I root for? It's none of your damn business who I root for.
Why are you calling an SEC Network if you don't have a team?
I do have a team,
to
Matt.
bash Jim?
Do you want to know
Jim would probably
Matt?
kick your butt.
What was that? Who would kick my butt?
Jim would probably kick your butt. I mean,
man,
you can
he probably
sit there
would
and bash
because I
on a
couldn't
guy.
hit Jim because
We don't even know if he can.
Hey, Matt, would you allow Squirrel to respond?
Yeah. Okay, let me respond.
Squirrel nuts.
Okay, shut up for a minute and I will, Matt. Jesus Christ. I've been a lifelong Alabama fan. I've met Bear Bryant, shook his hand, had dreams of playing for Bear Bryant, but I didn't have the talent to play for Bear Bryant.
You grew up in Mississippi,
Will you
right?
shut up for a minute, Matt?
Did you grow up in Mississippi?
No, I did not. And I grew
Why
up
are
in
you there
Tennessee.
now? Because you're making a state of Fort Worth play.
Paul, will you cut
Matt, listen, Matt, allow Squirrel to answer the question.
If you're going to jump on the call, I mean, let somebody answer his question, or do you just want to hear yourself? But like I said, Matt, I've been a lifelong. I'm going to come over to Georgia and slap you if you don't shut up.
Bring it, big boy.
I've been a lifelong Alabama fan. I grew up just outside of Knoxville. Sold coats at Tennessee games as a child, but I was never a Tennessee fan. Played for East Tennessee State. My kids go to Ole Miss, so I pull for Ole Miss now. What now? You tell me about you, Matt. Other than your little flimsy Georgia career, anything great about
career.
Matt?
Well, I've got a name, and it ain't Squirrel Nuts, and I haven't been all over the South.
Great.
I actually grew up in the state of Georgia. I pulled for the team I grew up. I didn't grow up in Knoxville.
Well, Matt, you didn't have any athletic ability, man. So you didn't have the ability.
Yeah, you're right. I just played college golf for
to.
fun, right, buddy? Yeah, no athletic ability, right, Squirrel Nuts?
I don't know, man.
Really?
I don't care.
Really, Squirrel?
It's not
that's
about
what you
me
do.
or you,
That's
Matt.
my point. Is you bash people. You just sit here and cut people
I bash
down.
people?
You bring, you bash on Jim on your stupid.
No,
poll.
just idiots like
bash,
you, Matt.
Bash.
Okay,
Bring some
thank you.
substance to the show. Do you have any credibility about
No,
anything?
I have no substance.
You
I
don't.
have no
You're
substance,
right.
Matt. We've determined that.
You're like a
I'm not on here for
squirrel.
substance.
That's why
Matt,
I shoot
it's not
him
about me,
personally.
Matt. I haven't sent my picture into the Finebaum show like you have, Matt. Okay? If I was that damn egotistical, I'd already have a picture up there, okay?
Egotistical.
Yeah, that's what yeah, exactly.
You don't send your picture into the Finebaum show because you're scared Jim will whip your butt. Because let me tell you something. If someone talks,
you nailed it, Matt. Thank you.
Okay, guys. Listen, I hate to interrupt, but thanks to both of you for making us all a little less intelligent. We are up against the break. Lars Anderson, who, in addition to being a great writer, is also a college professor. I'm sure he is thrilled to be following this episode of Jerry Springer. Back with more.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a thrill.
I'm a one-trick pony. Literally. I show up at kids' parties and act cute. That's pretty much it. So excuse me for being bitter. When Geico says not only could we save you money on car insurance, but we do more. Like give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or even via our award-winning mobile app. Well, ooh la la. Aren't they multi-talented? Hey, I said organic carrots.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
We were talking during our break about the importance of spring football attendance, and our next guest has written about that for The Atlantic. He should know quite a bit about spring attendance because not only does he live in Alabama, he teaches, in addition to his writing, at the University of Alabama. Been way too long since we've checked in with Lars Anderson. Lars, how are you, my man?
Hey, it's great to be with you, my old friend. How are you?
We are doing great. And, it's interesting because I referenced the 92,000 that showed up at Saban's first spring game, and you know that because you've probably heard Saban say this so many times, how important that was to what has happened since. Put this all into perspective for us.
Well, if I recall correctly, I think you were there too, and I was, and it felt like a big game atmosphere, and it was something that those of us who live in Alabama hadn't experienced for a long, long time. And not only was I there, but Julio Jones was there, Mark Barron was there, Courtney Upshaw was there, Mark Ingram was there, Barrett Jones was there, Marcel Darius was there, Dante Hightower was there, and Terrence Cody was there. And those were the guys who ended up forming Saban's first real recruiting class in 2008. It became the backbone of the team that would win the national title in 2009 and just set the stage for the dynasty. And every recruit who was there, every fan who was there remembers just the electricity of the environment. And big crowds attract big-time attention from recruits. There's no doubt about it. And, you saw the same dynamic happen this year at Nebraska where 86,000 showed up. And it remains to be seen whether Frost can even come close to replicating what Nick Saban has done. I certainly think that's a very tall task. But he can use that momentum and carry that into recruiting because, when you have these 17-year-old kids on visits standing on the sidelines and just looking up, and up and seeing nothing but fans for what is a practice, they can't help but be impressed. And it's the passion of the fan base, I think, that really is the root of successful programs. And I thought it was impressive, too, that Georgia was able to attract 82,000 to their spring game, second largest crowd this year. And even Alabama, after all the winning, still had nearly 75,000. So, again, it's not – I know a lot of people think that the size actually doesn't matter of the spring game crowds, but I would argue that it does because it's a reflection of just the intensity of the fan base, and it makes kids want to come and play at that school.
Talking to Lars Anderson. Lars, let's get a little bit deeper because today, unlike some years when recruits could show up, now they can show up officially on these spring games. Does that play an even bigger role into what's going on these spring Saturdays?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that Saban caters the whole day around the recruits. And I'm sure you know this, he has a reception at his house following the game, and I've written about this in books and in stories of how the ultimate closer is Miss Terry, his wife, and Miss Terry will get some one-on-one time with the recruits at their house after the spring game, and it's just a whole experience, a whole weekend experience for these kids to get on campus, interact with the other students, get tours of the campus, get tours of all the facilities. And to cap it off with a huge crowd at a spring game, and then an evening at the Saban's house, it's an impressive overall experience for these kids to have.
A couple of things I want to throw at you, Lars, because we haven't spoken lately about Alabama and other schools, but in particular, you've written so much about Nick Saban for your former job at Sports Illustrated and other places as well. You're on that campus a lot. You know him. There's a big debate now about how long will he stay, and there are whispers that opponents are using in relation to his age. This is an old trick. Hasn't hurt him too much yet, I might add. But what do you think? What's your best guess on his longevity at Alabama?
I think he's got at least 5 more years. I do think, and this isn't based on necessarily any personal insight, it's more of a gut feeling and talking to people who orbit around the program. I do think that he thought about hanging it up after this last national championship. I think it was a brief moment, maybe even a talk that he had with Miss Terry. And I think, he very quickly came to the conclusion that he's not ready to step away yet. His internal furnace is still at full blast. He's still just grinding out the long hours. And so I don't think he's going to be walking away anytime soon. And we all saw his reaction to what was sort of reported about Kirby Smart and perhaps him using Nick's age against him in the battle over some recruits. And the fire is still there, very much so, and it is at full blast. And I also think he's concerned about how he would sort of be able to maintain that intensity once he stepped away from the game, because it's just been in and out. It's just been a part of him for so long that every moment is sort of calculated and thought about and planned. And literally, he's a guy who has to make hundreds of decisions each day. And that is something that's very hard to step away from. My last book was with Bruce Arians, the former head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. And, Bruce and I had some discussions about whether or not he should retire at the end of the season, because and he ended up obviously retiring, but it's so hard to walk away from something you've worked all your life to get to the summit of your profession. And again, you're in charge of so much. You have so much responsibility, and everything, is just every day feels so important. Every hour feels important. And then you go from that to just nothing. It's a very hard transition. And I don't think Nick is ready to make that yet, or anytime soon.
Okay, Lars, it was such a great answer. I didn't want to interrupt, but you're a journalism professor, and if I happened to be in your class, you would have scolded me if I didn't come back and follow up. And even momentarily, if we could go back to one thing you said there, because I had not heard this before. You said Nick Saban, even perhaps for a moment, considered stepping away. He had a conversation. What can you tell us about that? Because that's even if it was for 5 minutes, it's still very interesting.
That, again, this just comes, and I tried to be clear about this. This comes from not any direct knowledge from Nick or Miss Terry. It's from talking to people who, as I said, orbit in their universe, and that they believe that Nick actually did take some time to think about it. Because going out on top on perhaps the greatest play in college football history, you can make that argument, the biggest comeback, and Nick sort of making all the right moves there at the end to win the national title. I think the question was, can it get any better than this? Is this the appropriate time? And again, I don't know if it was just for a very brief amount of time that he thought about it, but I do think, according to the people I've talked to, it was something briefly considered. And ultimately, again, I think that is the way in the rearview mirror now. And I believe that he is going to be there for at least 5 more years.
Well, but it would be common sense, though, even for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 24 hours to have that conversation, because you're right, Lars. If you go out on that, you've tied Bear Bryant. No one's ever going to debate you're the greatest coach in college football history, and your ending was as good as we have ever seen. Before you go, and I know this is very Alabama-centric, but you know what the debate is right now, and it's one of the most controversial conversations that we've had in a while about a quarterback situation, the Jalen Hurts situation, now with his father saying what he did the other day. Everyone seems to have an opinion. What is your sense?
Well, Jalen certainly didn't do himself any favors in the spring game. I mean, he got outplayed by a third-string quarterback who most of us have never even heard of before. And it sounded like a hot mic caught Nick having not so kind words for Jalen on the field after Jalen took off on a run when Nick wanted him to throw the ball. And I also go back to something that Bruce Arians hammered home to me when we're working on the book. By the time a kid is 19 or about 19, 20 years old, you absolutely can't teach him touch or accuracy anymore. It's either has it or he doesn't. And it's clear that Jalen just doesn't have that. You could give Jalen 50 chances to make that throw that Tua did to win the national title, and Jalen probably couldn't hit it maybe once out of 50 just because of the arc it needed to have, just the right pace and everything, the timing to beat the safety, getting over to the wide receiver. And Jalen, that's just not who Jalen is. And I think his dad also didn't do him any favors by making those public statements to Matt Hayes at Bleacher Report right before the game, because it looked like that put more pressure on Jalen. And he looked to me like a quarterback whose confidence has been broken. It looked like he actually regressed from the last few starts of last season. And so I personally think it's going to be Tua. And I know that is not the sort of widely held opinion in Alabama right now, but I think the starter will be Tua. I don't think Jalen will transfer this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he transferred next year if he earns his degree and graduates early, which I think he's on pace to do, so he could move without having to sit out. But I think Saban's going to go with Tua this year.
Lars, it has been too long, and in listening to you, it won't be that long again. It's just great to catch up. Such substantive information. We really appreciate it. Be well, my friend.
All right, thank you, Paul. Take care.
Lars Anderson, contributing writer to The Athletic. We'll take a break. A lot of stuff there. Saban considered stepping down, even momentarily. Have not heard that one before. Understandably so, why he would consider it, though, with the ending. We'll take a break. Back with more of your phone calls.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we're glad you're back. It's been a good show. It's a lot of really fascinating conversations that we have had here. Let's continue with more calls. I know a lot of folks have been holding on for a while. Let's check in with Matt in Florida. Matt, welcome to our program. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. How are you doing, sir?
We're doing great. Thank you.
I just wanted to defend my head coach. I know I'm in Florida.
Sure.
So please bear with me, but I love my Tennessee Vols. I was raised in Kingsport, so in the Tri-Cities there, so I love my Vols. I just wanted to defend Coach Pruitt for just a second. Georgia had 82,000. Alabama had 70-some thousand. I think Coach Pruitt's trying to build a culture there, and not just with his players, but also with the fans. I wasn't there. I'm in Florida. I could have been there, but I wasn't, because I think many people said the product on the field will determine who's there. So, I just think we need to give him a pass here. He's trying to build a culture, and according to what I just heard from Lars, who just blew my mind, it's not just about, because when I heard the comments, I thought it was about his players, and also, just encouraging us to be more involved in the program, more invested, rather than just our emotions, but also our presence. And I know there were 65,000, which is awesome, but they did have 82,000 in Georgia. And I always heard of this quote, Paul, and I don't mean to be just like rambling, but you don't prepare for where you've been, but you prepare for where you want to be. So I think he's kind of setting that mindset.
Matt, I agree. I think if you take out one line of his comments, I would be in total agreement. Basically, I am. And, compared to what we had there, and I say we because I did go to school there, it is refreshing. It's straight to the point, and I think he will relate, because Tennessee people want the truth. They don't want to be conned like they have been for the last 5 years. Thank you very, very much. We are coming back with 2 more hours.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
Bring your own guts. This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back. Second hour of the program is live. What would you expect it to be? We hope you had a good day. Welcome back to the program. And a lot of calls have been hanging on for a while. We'll try to race through some of them. Stephen is up next. Stephen, good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. How y'all doing today?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Hey, John and Randy, I'm going to give y'all a D- on your mock draft. You left Bobby from Birmingham out, Charles from Reeltown, I-Man, and Squirrel. Oh, my goodness. Hey, Paul, I'm going to make a statement, then I'll ask you a question. On the A-Day game, and we're talking about the controversy down there in Alabama, Tua didn't get to play at all, of course, so he couldn't look bad or good. But now he played real great in a half of the biggest game you could play in overtime. Matt Jones looked real good, I thought, in the A-Day game. And Jalen Hurts, I thought he looked bad on the playoff games, the championship game, and A-Day. But for 29 games, he has led us to victories in most of them. So do you think that there really is controversy, or do you not think Jalen Hurts would be the go-to guy?
No, I think there is controversy, Stephen, because I think Nick Saban decided earlier than the championship game that he needed to play Tua. There was a lot of consideration to playing him in New Orleans against Clemson. The game took care of itself, so he didn't need to do it. But the feeling, this is just a feeling, and Saban is welcome to dispute it, and I'm sure he will, but the feeling in Tuscaloosa is pretty simple. Jalen Hurts is no longer the best quarterback on that team.
But don't you think Tua will turn the ball over a lot more than Jalen?
I don't know that, but yeah, I mean, certainly. Here's what I mean, Stephen. We're not talking about a 500 team here. We're talking about an elite team that is challenged maybe 3 or 4 times a year, maybe not even that often. And I think if you and I know you're an Alabama fan, if you look at the games where Alabama has struggled, usually Jalen Hurts is at the center of it. He's not the only reason. You can't blame him entirely on the Auburn game. There were breakdowns across the board. The defensive problems with the linebacker depth was an issue, but he is certainly less productive in the bigger games of the year, and I think that has concerned Saban to the point where he has brought Tua along and finally made the decision. Now, Tua's injury has complicated things very much, as you know.
Most definitely. Hey, but now, do you put much stock in these A-Day games, spring games?
No, I don't. No, but you have to. Probably less important for Jalen Hurts, who has proven it in 28 games with live bullets, versus Jones or someone else who's never really been seen. So. Yeah, I mean, I think you can show your coach what you're capable of. I mean, I'm troubled by Jalen Hurts' inability, but I don't know what type of set. I don't know what the coaches were trying to do with him either.
Yeah, but because when you're a quarterback in an A-Day game or a spring game, you don't have to worry about that blitzing linebacker or
no
corner coming off knocking your socks off, because you don't have to get antsy feet because you're not going to get hit.
That's a fair point. Having said all that, Stephen, he should have played better, but he didn't. He won't lose the job based on that performance. I think right now you're basically hearing a lot of noise, and I think if you take Jalen's father's comments out of it, then we probably would not be at such a high level of intensity with this conversation. But Jalen just played very poorly. I think you cannot lose sight of that fact.
Yeah, agree with you, Paul. Love the show. I'll talk at you next week.
Well, I'm really glad to hear from you. Let's go a little closer to home and talk to a Bama fan. Larry, what do you think about all this? Good afternoon.
I think it's crazy. I think it's a bunch of loony bugs. I think it's going after quarterbacks. It's all, man, just an 8-day game.
But would you not agree though, Larry, that if you look at Jalen against LSU, against Clemson, against Auburn, games that really mattered, he doesn't perform nearly as well against them as he does against most of the high school teams that he plays from non-conference and others?
You got that. I'm agreeing with you, Paul,
yeah.
And, that's hard for me to do. I mean, I agree with you. He looked terrible Saturday. He looked like he was sleepwalking. And Big Ten John now has ruled me as his little, he had one of them little things that Peter Barnes had set up yesterday, amnesty, and he has ruled me as one of the worst callers.
John Hayes has?
Yeah.
John, is that accurate?
Larry, you clearly have not seen the Finebaum Caller Mock Draft 1.0.
And Big Ten John said I was terrible, and that he actually tried to get 2 amnesties. That little green.
Now, Larry, can you spell amnesty?
Can we go on? Let me spell it at the end. Can we spell amnesty? A-M-E-S-T-I-Y.
Hold on 1 second, Larry. I want to make sure. I think I'm pretty sure I know how to spell it, but give me the spelling again, Larry. I want to put it in my computer here and see where it comes.
Amnesty. A-M-E-S-T-I-F-Y. Amnesty. A-M, Amnesty.
Okay, Larry, I'm going to spot you the A, okay? A-M, right?
E-S-T, Amnesty.
No, I'm going to spot you. Larry, I'm going to help you here.
Right.
This is a weird word. A-M-N.
A-M-N.
That's how it starts. A-M-N.
Okay. A-M-N-E-S-T-A-Y. Amnesty. Right?
Wrong. Larry, I'm going to give you the A-M-N-E-S-T, okay?
E-Y. Amnesty.
A-M-N-E-S.
E-S-T-Y. E-Y.
19th trial. Larry got it right.
All right. Yeah, baby. So who's the bad caller now, Jack? How about you, Big Ten, John?
Larry, I'm living in your head, buddy. I said that on the show yesterday because I knew you were watching, and you'd stir about it all night long and call the show upset.
You're not a bad caller if you're number 3 in the mock draft.
And that's the problem.
Come on.
And that right there puts it into perspective, Larry. The 1.0 came out. You're ranked in the top 3, but by tomorrow you are dropping in the first round, my friend. Maybe out of the top 10.
Oh, it's on now. Oh, it's on. And all you're doing this for is just a crawfish your ass
You know, Larry, Larry, hold on a second. I really don't like what I hear. I mean, you and John sound like two little kids that just keep going back and forth and back and forth. I mean, you need to settle this either intellectually.
Golf course. He won't go on the golf course because he's a chicken man. Him and Mark both are chicken men. I didn't mean Mark was ugly, and like the other guy judging you in your underwear. I ain't judging Mark in his underwear. I don't care what happened. But I will say Mark just says ugly things. Now, you and the underwear guy, that's a different story.
Who's the underwear guy?
That said you look good in your underwear. Somebody did.
Who? I did?
Mm-hmm.
Where did someone see me in my underwear?
What's his name? Matt.
Matt has seen me.
He said he looked good. He said, I think Paul's a handsome man that looks good in his underwear.
I mean, there is that commercial shoot I did last year that never got published, but I guess he must have seen the prints.
Hey, that boy, look at him. You be careful, Paul. That boy might be trying to break up your marriage, boy. Watch him. But anyways, I don't think that Mark's ugly like ugly. He says ugly things about Bama.
Okay, Larry. Once again, like Jalen, you failed in your chance to improve your lot. Thank you for the call. Let's continue. More phone calls here. And Ken in Johnson City, Tennessee. That's East Tennessee for those of you in Arkansas.
Hey, Paul.
How are you?
I'm good, man. I was at the spring game, and I enjoy myself. Of course, didn't have anybody to hate in the game. I love both guys.
Always easier.
Yeah, that was the tough part of it. But, I'm feeling good. Stopped by Ruth Chris, got me a good steak, and I'm checking my Twitter, and I see Coach's comments, and I'm like, what? I've been a fan for years, retired Army. I moved back to Johnson City in 2005 and been a season ticket holder ever since. Traveled to Florida, when they played down there. And, I just felt taken aback by the thing. But that being said, when I thought about it, he kind of reminds me of my high school football coach. But everybody called him Wild Bill. You didn't want to lose when you played for that man.
No.
So, I see both sides of it. But, as a long-suffering fan, now these fans under 30, they haven't seen Tennessee yet. You know what I'm saying? The tradition, the winning, the pride. But we still put 65,000 people in for a spring game.
Well, they certainly haven't seen Tennessee at its zenith yet. No, I mean, they've seen a shell of its former self. But when Tennessee is running on all cylinders, it's at the very top of the football chain or close to it.
Yeah, well, we had a 4-8 season last year, and there was 100,000 at every game last year.
Oh, no doubt.
So, yeah, but it just took me aback that, he was talking to the fans, and, the rich folks section there on the home side from 30-yard line to 30-yard line was not anywhere close to being full, and those are the big buck donors, so, I don't know what they think about it, but, it confused me for a minute, but I got my sea legs back, so to speak. So.
Well, Ken, great to hear from you. Always great to talk to you. Thanks. We're up against a break here. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. More guests later on. We've had quite a show on a Tuesday, and we still have a long way to go. Stick around.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we're back on the program, and Lee is in Tampa. Lee, thank you, and good afternoon. Hey, Lee. Hey, what's going on, Lee?
Hey, nothing much. Long-time watcher, first-time caller.
Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.
Hey, I just want to comment on Jalen Hurts and playing Saturday. And to tell you the truth, I did not get to watch the game till a replay, but I was watching, and first of all, he did not play a great game. Everybody admits that. But how many quarterbacks other than Deshaun Watson the last couple of years play a great game against Alabama's #1 defense?
Well, I mean, listen, playing a great game and playing a bad game are two different things.
No, I understand. And he didn't play. I mean, he had a couple drops. Running back dropped one out the backfield. He had one drop. Now, he threw some bad passes. But when
let me ask you a question, Lee.
Hang on.
No, Lee. You say he threw some bad passes. When has he thrown good passes down the field?
No, he threw a couple that were dropped. Now,
okay.
When you take a snap and you have a DN sitting in your face, and there were two sacks he took that wasn't his fault. Now there was a couple he took that was his fault. Mm-hmm. And when you're feeling that pressure, and I understand, but what I'm saying is there's a lot of quarterbacks that would do the same thing.
Lee, let me ask you a specific question.
Yes, sir.
And forget fandom. If you call up talking about Jalen Hurts, you're obviously a fan of Alabama.
Yes, sir.
What would your assessment be after 2 years of starting of Jalen Hurts' decision-making as the quarterback?
Well, when he feels like he needs to run, he needs to run. Mm-hmm. And when he throws, is he a great quarterback? No, I'm not saying he is.
Okay.
But when I think he's a winner, I think he's a gamer, and I think everybody agrees with that. Now,
listen, I would. I'm telling you what, I would not want to lose him as a quarterback if I'm the coach of that team.
And that's the way I feel, because the man's a winner.
Well, you know what he's capable of, but maybe we don't know all the gamesmanship going on. Maybe there isn't any. Although I think there. Hey, thank you for the call. I do appreciate it. Anthony is in Pittsburgh. You're on the air. Good afternoon, Anthony.
Hey, Paul. What's up, buddy? How are you?
We are doing great. What about you?
I am great. So I want to talk about, obviously, this Jalen Hurts and Tua thing, and obviously a little bit of Mac Jones. But I feel like we had Mark Burnett of SEC Country on our show this past week, and we talked about, obviously, before Jalen's dad came out and said those things about him potentially transferring and things like that. But do you think Jalen is getting too much heat? I mean, he has one shaky A-Day game, and everyone seems like they're out on him. I mean, this is a guy that threw 17 touchdowns last season, only one interception on 60% completion. Or is it his ability to throw the ball down the field?
But Anthony, I don't think it's any of those things. I think it's about the other person here. If we were only talking about Jalen against Matt Jones, this conversation wouldn't go very far. But we're talking about Jalen versus the known and the unknown. The unknown is we don't know what Tua looks like over an extended extended period. Can he do it 6, 8, 10, 12 games in a row? We know what he did. So that is a mystery. I do know one thing. People that understand the game of football all believe Tua is the better quarterback, but he has yet to prove it on a consistent basis because his best opportunity was this spring, and he got hurt on the first day.
Yeah, well, what about a guy like Mac Jones, who obviously is a redshirt freshman? He's being considered to be a pro-style quarterback by many, obviously, and he's been getting more and more reps, obviously, with Tua being out. Do you think that he has a real shot to compete for the starting quarterback job?
No, I don't.
What about next year? Yes?
No, it's
Is it just Jalen and Tua, and then it's just not even close?
and then you add Tua's brother, and then you add Paul Tyson to the mix.
I see. All right, Paul. I just want to give you a call and just see what's going on and just get your take on that because I know there's a lot of controversy going on down there in Alabama.
Great to hear from you. Nick is up next in Florida. I think we talked. Nick, are you the guy we talked to a couple weeks ago from the Big Ten?
Paul, I certainly am. How are you?
Man, did you make a splash here on your virginal call to the program?
We're going to wipe your butts this year and smoke them. Oh man, you know what, Paul? I woke up the next day. I was on the internet on my news feed, my Google feed from 247 Sports said epic Ohio State fan has call on Paul Finebaum show.
You made it. You made it big time.
Well, let's not get carried away, you know.
Okay, I tend to exaggerate. You are correct.
How you doing, man?
We're doing great. Well, I saw that story, and we tend to see whatever people are saying about us, and we got a pretty big chuckle out of that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, your little cohorts there in the booth that you go to on the side there, those little guys who are your yes men, they had a big field day with that.
My yes men? What do you? We don't have yes men here. Those guys are entitled to say whatever they want to say.
Well, I don't even know who they are.
Okay, well, allow me to introduce you to them. Randy Heritage is on the right. If you're watching on TV, if you're listening, he's still on the right.
Hello.
And Big Ten John.
It was another guy. The last time.
John Hayes was probably here, and you're probably thinking of this heavy breathing makes me feel like I'm on a 900 number here. The other guy was Mark Cubelic, probably.
Yeah.
Or Brams.
Or Danny Brams.
John Hayes brought up a good point. He said, why don't Ohio State and Alabama play? And he was right. I just wanted to call back and explain my situation. And, you know, I had a little too much to drink. I will admit that. And
No. Hold on a second. You're telling me that a Finebaum caller was drinking while making a phone call to this show?
Paul, I had the day off. It's my right as an American to do it basically whatever I want.
So what? So if you don't mind, what were you and how much were you drinking?
I was drinking pretty steadily. I was able to obviously take over 20 minutes of your show. So I was doing pretty good. You know, I mean, not saying that in a braggadocio. How do you spell amnesty, by the way, Larry from Shelby, who you put on right after me? I'd like to meet Larry. If he can find his way out of the trailer that he lives on that's jacked up on cinder blocks, I'll meet him halfway.
Making fun of people who live in mobile homes now, huh?
It's not mobile when it's on cinder blocks, Paul.
Well, you know, a lot of people. I have a lot of friends who live in those homes because they like the community that they live in, and that's in their affordable price range. And what's wrong with that? I mean, you're making fun of people because they can't take off a day and get drunk like you.
He called me a hey boy. He said, "Hey boy, yeah, you come over here with that toilet paper. I'll let you wipe my butt." Yet he's talking to you about you and your underpants. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't like 30 minutes ago They were talking about you. Larry specifically was talking about you in your underwear.
I think that's what he was saying.
Is that what you Alabama fans do down there, Paul? I'm just curious.
You know, Nick, listen, where I come from, we don't judge people by where they live. We judge people by the content of their character.
Keys, Paul. Please,
good for you.
Spare me.
Say hello
to the judgment.
Say hello to Ernest Hemingway if you see him out walking his dog late at night. Now, my point is that most people that I know are good people. They don't call up radio shows drunk or sober. Frankly, you were funnier when you were drunk. And, disparage people because, I mean, who appointed you the poet laureate of this radio show? Can you explain that to me?
Well,
I mean, and by the way, Nick, and I'm not going to make fun of you if you're tied up to an oxygen tent. My grandmother was much of her late life as my mother was. But I mean, what's the deal with this heavy breathing, man?
Well, I'm on speakerphone. So.
Oh. Well, is it possible that you could come off the speakerphone? You're on a national radio and television show here, bud. Or do you need do you need your hand, or do you need your hands free while you're making this phone call?
No, sir. You are correct, and I respect what you do. I respect Paul Finebaum as a football guy.
The oxygen, please.
Do you think Larry knows where Nick Saban went to college? Do you think Larry has any idea where Nick Saban is from? And I got a lot of feedback.
Well, someone tells me that Nick
Saban, snowbird.
Larry probably knows.
Snowbird.
Okay, you obviously know where Nick Saban's from, right?
Of course I do. I'm from Cleveland. Of course I know where Nick Saban went to college, and so did Lou Holtz, and so did Joe Walsh of the Eagles. By the way, they went to Kent State. We're also 4 people were massacred by the Ohio National Guard.
Yeah, 10 soldiers and Nixon's coming. I heard the song.
That's right. Correct. But anyway, how about those Buckeyes? Are you ready for this? I mean, I think this
How about
is,
what
this,
Buckeyes?
If it doesn't happen...
Listen, which Buckeyes do you want to talk about? The one with Ezekiel Elliott, who choked away a national championship with the best team Urban Meyer will ever have in 2015, the 2016 version, which lost 31-0 to Clemson, or last year's version, which lost by 31 at Iowa? Which Buckeyes team would you like to talk about?
Well, I mean, if you want to go back and quote the past 5 years,
I quoted the last 3. Nick, let me just end here with this admonition. Try harder. This was a total fail, as your first call was. Adios, amigos. We'll be right back. Much more to come.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Anyway, welcome back. We have a Southerner on board here. He is Cole Cubelic, the former star at Auburn. He now works for the SEC Network to start a new show on WJOX in Birmingham, and we're happy to have Cole on. Cole, how's the new show going? Good afternoon.
Doing well, Paul. It's great. A lot of fun. Enjoying being on in Birmingham in that market that I know you're very familiar with, but glad to be back with you. I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate it. We won't waste any time because I'm sure on your program this week and perhaps for many weeks to come, the question surrounds and revolves around Jalen Hurts. You cover this league. You do games every Saturday night. What gives?
I think it's a story that's intriguing, and obviously the storylines around it continue to mount. I have been a guy that has been a supporter of Jalen Hurts. I've been very appreciative of what kind of football player that he's been for Alabama. I think there were things that he did the last 2 seasons that didn't involve throwing the football that a lot of fans didn't understand or didn't appreciate. It made that offense very difficult to defend. But I look at what's being stacked up against him now, and with what Tua Tagovailoa came in and did in that national championship game, the fact that we didn't see Tagovailoa be able to go out in the spring game, do well or not do well. The fact that his little brother commits to the school just before the spring game kicks off, and the fact that Jalen Hurts takes the field and looks very, just did not look impressive at all. I think begins to point to the fact that he potentially might not be a part of that roster. With what his father came out and said with Matt Hayes and Bleacher Report last week, potentially naming him as the biggest free agent in college football history, when he's slated to graduate, the fact that he has a redshirt year still under his belt that he could take if need be. The young man has played quarterback in this league. He's been successful doing it. He knows what it's like. He understands that feeling. For him to take a back seat or not want to take a back seat would be understandable to me. The hard part for me, Paul, the thing that I struggle with is Jalen Hurts' demeanor, his attitude, the way he carries himself, and what kind of individual and human being he has been. All of that would point to him taking a lesser role with this football team and being part of it moving forward. But the more things happen, hearing Nick Saban audibly say that he was frustrated with the lack of progression from Jalen Hurts during that spring game, and just the fact that it doesn't look as though he's progressing, even though I know that he has spent more time in that facility over the last 2 months during spring football than his entire career, and you don't see things going in the right direction, is concerning to me. And I think the question is no longer, will it be Jalen Hurts or Tua Tagovailoa taking the majority of reps? The big question for me is, will Jalen Hurts be on that Alabama roster when they kick off against Louisville?
And before I get to that answer, here's a young man who has started 4 playoff games. He's played for the national championship. I mean, why would anything affect him negatively in a spring football game, other than the fact that his progression has been stunted?
I don't think it's just the spring football game. I think what I took away from the spring football game is not necessarily, well, he didn't perform well in a scrimmage, so he probably doesn't have a chance to get playing time. What I took away from that is the fact that he's not progressing. I attribute a lack of confidence to that. And the fact that he's not able to go out and release the football at certain points, when he's in the pocket, when he's leaving the pocket, when he's going through his reads, that to me shows a guy that potentially has lost his confidence. And if that's the case, how do you really progress? How do you get better? If you don't have the confidence to go out and let the football rip as a quarterback, I don't really see it getting too much better, because that's one of the biggest hurdles that you have to overcome to be able to play college football at any position. And if that's something that's stunting his growth, I'm not necessarily sure that he gets over it looking over his shoulder or looking over the shoulder of a guy like Tua Tagovailoa, who I think the family statement made that they're not going anywhere. The fact that his little brother committed and they have moved to Alabama and they're going to be there and they're going to be a part of that football program. So to me, it's just that the lack of confidence is something that seems to be creeping into Jalen Hurts' mind, and something I never thought I would say because of his demeanor and the way he had handled himself in some of those big games that you mentioned.
You host a show there, you live there, you hear people every day, and I'm really curious, in that state, Cole, is there a prevailing wind? Is there a conventional wisdom from the Alabama fans on Jalen Hurts' future? What do they say, and what do they really want to happen? I'm not talking about the ones who just speak from the hymnal or sing from the hymnal. The rank and file Tide fans, what do they want?
There is a smaller portion of the fan base that seems to be very appreciative of what he's done and what he means to that program and how he's carried himself and what kind of an individual he is. But I think the diehard football fan and most Alabama fans that we connect with knows what Tua is, has an idea what Tua is capable of, realizes that the ceiling is much higher for Tua Tagovailoa, regardless of the fact that they're basing on a very small piece of actual football played. They want what could be better, and they believe that Tua is better. And I don't think that they really care one way or the other if he transfers, if he leaves, if he stays, if he goes. They might tell you that they want him to stay, but they're not going to tell you that they want him to stay and they want Tua to be on the bench because they think Tua is the guy that gives them the best opportunity to win football games. So most fans appreciate Jalen Hurts, but when it really comes down to it, they want Tua Tagovailoa on the field taking snaps.
Before you go, the second story here in a lot of places has had to do with Jeremy Pruittâ and what he said, what he meant. Who knows exactly what he was talking about, other than that's the last time we have heard from him. What's your view of the new coach at Tennessee and his apparent shot at the fans who didn't come to the spring game?
I can't think of a fan base that's more deserving of having a shot directed at them. One that just because they did not approve of a potential, not a hire, Paul, a potential head coaching hire, that they form a groundswell and uproar against the administration to potentially go hire someone else, none of which most could name who that replacement should be. And then the time Jeremy Pruittâ falls into place, you don't see an outpouring of support at the spring game. I think that was Jeremy Pruitt's way of saying, hey, this is what you guys asked for. This is what you done. You got Phil back in as the AD. You didn't get the guy that you didn't want as head coach. Now I'm taking over. Get in here and support this football team. And I think he wants Tennessee football to mean a lot to a lot of people. He's seen how it's done. He's been at Georgia under Mark Richt. He's been at FSU under Jimbo Fisher. He's been at Alabama under Nick Saban. He understands that recruiting is vital. Fan support is vital to recruiting. It does make a difference. And he wants that program to be great. So I think this is Jeremy Pruittâ saying, if we're going to be great, we need to be great in every aspect of our program. Administratively, fan support in the spring game, obviously our players not quitting in the spring game, and getting as much talent and the best coaching staff here as possible.
Cole Cubelic, always great to catch up. Thank you, Cole. Be well.
Thank you, Paul.
Cole Cubelic joining us here on our program. We still have time for you to participate at 855-242-7285. Your reaction to Cole and everything else that we have talked about for the last 3 hours when we come back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the program. Glad you're here. Let's get some reaction to everything that has been going on all afternoon long. Ben is in Jacksonville. What do you say, Ben?
Hey, Paul. How you doing today?
We're doing great. Thanks for the call.
Hey, man. I just want to let you know, dude, the waves were totally awesome today. We got a low pressure off the East Coast, and we're talking a head high overhead, plenty of green range. But I had a lot of problem with what your buddy Nick was saying from down there in the Keys.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I mean, dude, come on. Who does this guy think he is? They're calling to an SEC show and started bashing people for the places that they live and everything. I mean, being in the military, that's our favorite pastime is trash talking to each other. And you don't. There's certain things that you don't say. You don't talk about people's family. You don't talk about how much money they make. And you don't talk about where they live. I mean, this dude he's trash. All right. So I would appreciate it if you didn't let him call in anymore because he ain't got nothing to say but garbage. All right.
Well, listen, we don't preclude people from calling in because we disagree with them.
That's fine, Paul. I understand that. But also, I want to talk about Jeremy Pruittâ and some of the things that he said.
Sure, go ahead.
I don't have a problem with anything that Jeremy Pruittâ has said. He's challenged the fan base to show up and put more effort into the team, and I agree with a lot of what everybody else is saying, is that we really haven't seen nothing, so you're not really going to get that same support as if, you're Nick Saban coming off a national championship. But I like Jeremy Pruitt's mentality. He sounds a lot like some of the stuff that Inky Johnson says on a daily basis. You got to try hard and work hard every day and empty the bucket. And I really like Jeremy Pruittâ, and I think that Tennessee football is in a good place, and I think we're going to go really far with him as a head coach.
Great to hear from you. Thank you very, very much. Bo is in Birmingham. Go right ahead, Bo.
Hey, Paul, how you doing, bud?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Okay. I need you to settle a bet for me.
Okay.
Okay, the bet is about one of Larry's spellings. Now, the bet has nothing to do with the way that he misspelled it, because I'm not saying that he spelled it correctly. I don't think he ever got selected for the third grade spelling bee.
No, he did not.
Like that. Yeah, probably not. But anyway, the word was Utah, and the way the man is telling me that he spelled it, I find it hard to believe, and this may cost me $20, but I have to know for sure. This was been probably 2 weeks ago this Wednesday. The word was Utah, and I was told that he spelled it UTWAE. Can you recall that?
I think that's correct, Bo.
He did spell it that way. Oh, my God.
Did you lose $20? Did you lose $20?
It's certainly looking that way, Paul. It's certainly looking
I'll
that
tell you what, we will. I've got a GoFundMe site up right now on our website. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
Bring your own guts. This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we welcome you back. Final hour has arrived. Welcome to the program. It's been a good one. Your phone calls continue. A lot of folks holding on. So why delay? Phil is up next. Phil, go right ahead.
About the whole Jalen Tua thing. I'm a Bama fan. Work in the Tuscaloosa area. There was a lot of rumors going around about, players and the locker room being divided at halftime in that game.
Yeah.
And as a Bama fan, at the end of the year, you're watching Calvin Ridley, and he's being overthrown, in the end zone against Clemson, and his body language is showing he's frustrated. I haven't really heard much about that in this whole Jalen Tua thing. I was just wondering if there was any validity to that, if anybody else has reported on that.
You know what, Phil? I heard thanks for the call. I heard the same thing in New Orleans. There was a sense down there that players were pushing hard to make a change before the Clemson game, and it didn't happen. The game pretty well took care of itself early on. But, I can't confirm whether that actually occurred. I can confirm that was the prevailing sound coming out of that Alabama team, at least according to people very close to the situation. Thank you for the call. Jethro is up next. Good afternoon, Jethro.
Yes, sir, Paul. We are big fans here.
Thank you very much.
Big fan. Oh, yes, sir. Big fans here in 790 Alabama, which is a suburb of Montgomery.
Sure.
Our mayor here, actually, the Honorable Mr. Romberg Amber Wilson, loves you and all you do.
Well, thank him for me.
Roll Tide.
I'm glad to hear that.
My question to you, yes, sir. My question to you, sir, though, is how high or Zaslow can a small two-bit town like 790 go when slim to none of a chance to obtain a Tobin Award for youth athletics? Does Alabama have a chance if Nick Saban retires? Will Alabama fall off the map, and we'll hang ourselves and listen to you? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to be in Alabama in a couple of days, and maybe I'll be able to give you a better answer after being on the ground. But I think Alabama will survive. Alabama survived Paul Bryant. Took a while. I think they'll survive Nick Saban, but it will be different, and it will be difficult. And no one knows when that day is coming, but it is coming. Greg is up next. Greg, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Paul. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
I was down in Tuscaloosa for A-Day, and, Jalen has this demeanor that doesn't, you don't see a lot of emotion on him, whether he's winning or losing, but just from his body language, it didn't seem like he was invested in that game on Saturday. And I know that when you are faced with adversity, you either get better or you don't. And I think the concern from those who appreciate what he's done but are worried is that he's had time now to improve in the area that he needs it most, and it hasn't happened. Now, that doesn't mean it will never happen.
But Greg, did you hear Cole a minute ago, Cole Cubelic?
Yes, I caught the tail end of his.
I thought he made probably the most salient point yet, and it's about confidence. And if you don't have confidence, and you know this, you've served honorably in the military in very difficult circumstances. You go back to your days on a submarine. If you're not confident of what you're doing, it affects everyone around you, and it affects the end result. And why he doesn't have confidence, it's not down here, it's up there. And that's a problem, if that is indeed the case.
You're right. And, with regards to submarine service, you only have a limited time to get it. And if you don't get it, they put you back up on the surface side. So he's been good enough to win most of the games, but the ones that get you to the championship, he has struggled And so, like you said earlier, Tua offers the promise of more. We just have to see it. We just know right now we're not seeing it from Jalen, and that's the rub.
And also, it becomes almost a business decision for Nick Saban, and I'm sure he would be thrilled to hear us talking about his program in this way. But you now have Tua's brother committed, so are you going to lose the combination of those two for a player that's going in the wrong direction? I don't think so.
You're right. And I saw Tua's parents during the walk when they were coming down into the stadium, and they were shaking hands with people, very friendly. And I think it just cements what the new direction of Alabama's quarterback is going to look like moving forward. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk again, and have a great day, Paul.
Thank you, Greg, as always. Really good to hear from you. Let's go to Frank next in the ATL. How are you, Frank?
I'm doing good, Mr. Finebaum. How are yourself?
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Mr. Finebaum, that was a good call by Greg. A lot of the things and points he made I want to talk about. But I was at a 8A game also, and and I saw the replay of it. And he's right. You know, it seemed like he had a confused look on his face. It seemed he was pacing the sideline quite a bit more. And, Jalen, after a play, he goes sit down, maybe talk to the offensive coordinator, and, you really don't see. He has like a stoic look on his face, and he seems different. Did you see the replay? Did you see that?
Yeah, and let's not forget he's on his fourth coordinator too.
That is true. It was a beautiful day.
I don't think Jalen has really. It was. I don't think Jalen's been the same since Lane Kiffin left.
Yeah. So there's so many offensive coordinators. I've seen some issues with him. I mean, he has his limitations, but just in that 8A game, I think maybe he was pressing it. Maybe he was trying to do too much. I'm a Jalen Hurts
but
fan.
that's what surprises me. And I was trying to make this point earlier, Frank. And I understand a young player coming in and maybe letting the moment overwhelm him. This is a guy that's been in the biggest games that Alabama has played in recent years. He started in 4 consecutive college football playoff games. That should have been a walk in the park for him on Saturday. It was not.
Yes, sir.
That's to me disturbing that he was out of sorts in what should really be a simple scrimmage for him.
Well, why do you think all the somewhat negative feedback and what you were just saying with a caller before Greg about the what's going on in Tuscaloosa? It seems, I don't know. Is that true? Is it Is that,
I think, and who knows if and thank you for the call, Frank. Who knows if Jalen, how much of this noise Jalen Hurts is hearing? I promise you, he's hearing it. We act like these guys don't know what's going on. They do know what's going on. They read, they keep up, they monitor, they have friends, and the everyone has a qualifier with Jalen Hurts. I really like him. I think he's a great kid, but. And I'm sure he feels it. I'm sure he feels that the Alabama fans have turned against him. And I'm sure the next 10 will say that's not true, but it is true. I hear it every day. I sense it every day. Hey, thank you for the call. Do appreciate it. Let's move along and talk to Sam in Illinois. Hello, Sam.
Hey, what's going on, Paul? I hear all this talk about the controversy between Hurts and Tagovailoa, but I was just wondering about this Mac Jones kid, the freshman from Jacksonville. He threw for 289 yards in the spring game, looked really good, 2 touchdowns, the bomb to Marks, and I was just wondering why his name isn't being mentioned in all this talk.
Well, I think a few people have brought him up. Really, he's new to most of us. I'm sure Nick Saban would like to be assured that he can play that position in case Jalen Hurts leaves. So I think that's why you're not hearing that much about him. Most of the conversation's on the top. Hey, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Porky is in Georgia. Hello, Porky.
Hey, Paul, what's happening?
We're doing great. Thank you for the call.
Hey, just wanted to talk. I know there's been a lot of Tua and Hurts drama today, but I want to talk Fromm and Fields real quick.
Go right ahead.
Here's my take. Fromm is an awesome quarterback, led Georgia to the national title as a freshman. Not going to debate that. But Justin Fields, now I got it. It was a spring game. He was going against the twos, and people are saying all this stuff. The number one player in the country doesn't come to Georgia to sit on the bench for 3 years. So all the drama you're having at Bama right now with Tua and Hurts, you're going to have that this year at Georgia by the end of the season, because either Jake Fromm or Justin Fields, one of them is going to be gone. You might be able to get them to stick around for the 2019 season, but after that it's done. One of those two kids is going to leave. My personal opinion, which doesn't matter, is that Fields is going to win the job out. He can throw. He can run. I mean, the kid is ridiculous. Now, we have to see what he does against SEC competition. But like I said, when you're as talented as him, you don't go to Georgia to learn the system and sit on the bench for 3 years. He came there to play and compete, and I think that Kirby Smart is going to make it a real competition. He's going to make it a real competition and let Fields compete for that job. And everybody at Georgia, everybody I talk to thinks I'm crazy. Oh, he's going to learn from Fromm for 3 years, and
No.
he's going to learn the playbook and all this.
Porky,
nonsense.
when you are the number one player in the country, you're not going anywhere to learn for 3 years.
Yeah, you're right. That kid came there to compete and to play, and he is really, really good. And that's not to disparage Jake Fromm or to take anything away from him, but Justin Fields, I mean, he looks like Cam Newton. The kid is built like him, and people are like, well, he needs to learn the playbook. He got a 31 on his ACT and got into Harvard, for God's sake. He's smart enough to learn the playbook. That kid came to compete, and I'm telling you, by November, he might be the starter at Georgia, and that's going to shock people. And they better look out, because I'm telling you, Justin Fields is coming. And just wanted to get your thoughts on that, Paul. Thank you.
By the way, I agree with you, and I'm hearing similar things from that campus. We are up against a break. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. It has been a good one today. Glad you're all with us, and we're back with more after this.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the program. Let's talk Tennessee. That has been a common theme today as well. We talked about the Tide in Georgia. What about the happenings in K-Town? Wes Rucker joining us. Wes, always good to catch up with you. Quite a bit of news since we talked last. Let's start with Jeremy Pruitt's comments. And I know some have accused the media of misrepresenting them, but then again, I've read a lot out of your town that suggests otherwise. Good afternoon, and tell us from the beginning what he said and what was he trying to say.
You know, Paul, to be honest with you, I think that was probably everyone's first introduction to Jeremy Pruitt. You know, if you go back to his first year at Georgia, when he was just a coordinator, he still was not afraid to speak his mind about them not having an indoor facility at the time and the players not being that great. And, you know, if he doesn't like something that he sees, he's going to say that. And I think it probably rubs some people the wrong way for a lot of reasons, not least of which being they had, I think, 65,000 and change there. And that was about fifth nationally. But, you know, look at the two places that were above Tennessee. Look at two of them, Georgia and Alabama. That's where he's been for the past decade. He's seen football and the support that goes around it at the highest level, and I just don't think he's going to be happy until he sees that.
Specifically, his comment about the people that weren't there. I mean, it was kind of a run-on sentence, which we'll get used to at some point. But what has been the reaction among the fans that you talk to and hear from every day?
You know, Paul, I think it's been like just about everything else in our country is right now, and that's split right down the middle. It seems like there's a lot of people who are claiming that he was right, and a lot of people who are claiming, well, he was right, but he shouldn't have said it, and then some people who just didn't like it. But, you know, I keep going back to this, Paul. So many people got so upset eventually at Butch Jones just trying to sell people things they didn't want or didn't need, and just going on and on again, trying to say everything was rosy and great, and people didn't like that. Now you get a guy who tells you exactly what he thinks, and some don't like that. So I think the bottom line is some people just aren't going to be happy. I mean, if I'm Pruitt, I don't know if I say that, but I don't think he was wrong, and I really don't think it was that bad when you look at the context of how he said it.
And just to make sure, and I think I know the answer to this, there has been no effort to try to clarify what he said. That's what he said, and that stands, correct?
That's correct. Jeremy Pruittâ has not walked anything back on that. I think he said what he thinks, and he still thinks it.
Good for him. Whether I agree or not, I like someone who will at least be firm, and I think that's what you're getting at. Well, beyond the optics, which really don't make a bit of difference when it comes to rebuilding a college football program, let's get inside on what you saw starting at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, I thought Jared Garantano was pretty good in that game. Now, Tennessee was playing without two of its best linebackers, but Tennessee was also playing without two of its best offensive linemen. So I'm not going to sit there and say that's an excuse. I don't think it is. I think Garantano did look good. Now, whether that's good for the defense, I don't know. But Garantano, he threw some good balls into tight windows. I thought he had poise. I thought he had good command of things. He didn't really make too many glaring mistakes. And I think it put to bed any thoughts of Will McBride being a serious challenger for that spot. And I think that's what Garantano needed to do, quite frankly, if he was going to try to hold off Keller Crisp when he comes in this summer. Because if Tennessee's coming out of that game saying, we're not really sure who our quarterback is, well, that means that Keller Crisp comes in with an advantage from day one. Now if you're saying, okay, Garantano looks pretty good, well, okay, now Chris is in for a fight when he gets there, which is what Garantano wanted to do.
Now, when does Chris get there, and what's the feeling on how quickly he can? I mean, he's been around, obviously. He's a graduate transfer, but what is his timetable?
Yeah, I think, Paul, don't hold me to this, but I think it's just after he graduates this spring, so it's not too far from now where he should be in town. And, I hate to be kind of stereotypical about this, but the kid went to Stanford, so he's probably pretty smart.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that he can pick this thing up pretty quickly. And that football can be as simple or as complex as you want to make it, Paul. You know that. You can give a guy just a few things to do and manage and go out there and get the job done, or you can try to overload him with a bunch of things. I think Chris, no matter how smart you are and how many times you look at the playbook the past few months, you're not going to be able to pick up every single thing. It's just not possible. But a lot of his teammates have only gotten a few month head start on him with this offense, so that probably helps him to some extent. So I think it's a good situation for him. I think he's a smart kid, and he saw an opportunity at Tennessee, and he certainly has it, because when he gets there, he'll get a chance to compete for the job.
You don't have to be stereotypical, Wes. I sent Stanford an application, and they sent it back. So my fiance got into Vanderbilt, and so she kind of holds that over me every single day. So I hear you on that. Call me off the air. My wife's a Vanderbilt graduate, so I can help you get through that. It's just best not to talk college football around her.
There you go.
Of course, I'm a Tennessee grad, so I know the feeling. Wes, overall, it just seemed like Pruitt made a lot of interesting comments about what he saw in the field. And my question isn't so much what Tennessee will do in the future, but considering we got sold this bill of goods every year about how great Butch Jones was recruiting, why aren't there any more players on this roster?
That's a really good question, Paul, and I think there's probably a lot of answers for that. One would be that some of these guys just have not been as good as people thought they were going to be. The other easy answer is they weren't coached up very well. But one of the underlying themes of a lot of those Butch Jones classes, as good as they looked on paper, there was always some attrition there. There were always a few guys per year leaving, and so they were always a little bit short on numbers, and I think that's showing up too. But I think that we know that Tennessee team, let's say it was a little overrated going into the season. I'll give you that. It should not have gone 0-8 in SEC play. It should not have gone 4-8. I mean, that team, I've seen Tennessee teams with less talent win more games than that for certain. So that's on coaching, that's on bad breaks, that's on a lot of things. But, I do think part of the reason Pruitt was a little bit upset in that game, and I think if you go back to signing day, you'll see the same thing from him. And I think that's just a natural human reaction to not being around the kind of players that he's used to being around. You look at where he's been, Florida State, Georgia, Alabama, even the first year he got there under Mark Richt, there was a lot of talent there. They had been recruiting to the same system. They were okay in that department. A couple years later, you saw how good they were. So they had players. He's had players everywhere he's gone. This is the first time I think he's walked into something and gone, oh, my God. It's just not what he's used to, and I think that's a little bit frustrating for him. Now, nobody's going to cry for him. He makes $4 million a year to fix it, but it's not an easy job.
The expectations don't make a whole lot of difference, but by this point in the year, the spring is over. The schedule is there. People look at it, and we know Tennessee has a tough opener against West Virginia. We know the ring of terror or the reign of terror with Georgia and Florida, Alabama, just to name a few. When you look at what Tennessee has on the schedule, what type of numbers do you start coming up with?
The number I keep getting back to when I look at it is 5-7. Now that doesn't mean that won't change. I mean, maybe Chris comes in there and some of those freshmen look really good, and you say, okay, now they've got a chance. But I think when you look at what they have realistically in the first year, I mean, even when Saban got to Alabama the first year, that team went 6-6. Or 6-7 ultimately. It had some good players, but it didn't have the depth. It certainly had nothing like it had later on. So it takes time, no matter who you are as a coach, when you walk into a 4-8 football team. Unless you go get a Cam Newton, which, okay, then I'll give you that. But they don't have that right now. So I think this team's going to be fighting like hell, really, to try to get to a bowl game, to be honest with you.
And Wes, schedule-wise, it couldn't be any worse. I mean, you have Alabama home, which really doesn't mean a thing. And you're at Georgia. You're at Auburn. I mean, what a terrible break in addition to Alabama, you have to deal with Auburn. I mean, you could have gotten, no one would be easy, but that would that's about as tough as it gets outside of Alabama. You're at South Carolina. You got the two best teams in the East. You've got you got all the best teams in the West. Two best teams in the West. You're on the road at the two best teams in the East. I guess you have no silver lining with the opener. I think you're right. I mean, 5-7 to get to a bowl game this year, and we'll hear this cliche in Atlanta at Media Days. Jeremy Pruittâ will get Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I think, when you look at that schedule, the first thing that I keep thinking is, aside from that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
Yeah.
It's
Do you have a program, by the way? I'd like to put it in my collection.
Yeah, it's just not a great look. And if I'm Jeremy Pruittâ, the very first question I ask when I get there is, the first question I ask is, how much money do I get for my assistants? The second question I ask is, how much does it cost to buy out that West Virginia game?
Yeah.
Because, I know you got to play a Power 5 team, and that's just how it is now, but you can go get one that's not West Virginia at a neutral site, because that offense, when you play West Virginia, you're going to have to score points. No matter who you are, you're going to have to score points to win that game. And right now, I don't know how great they're going to be at doing that. So I would have done anything I could to try to fix that, because that's it's tough when you don't go to a bowl game in your first year. And I look at that schedule and I say, it's not hopeless, but it's a really tough haul.
And Wes, it happens all the time in programs. And by the way, what does it cost to get out of a game like that? $2 million? And I say that
probably.
I'm not laughing at $2 million, but considering what you're paying off to Butch Jones, John Curry, maybe Greg Schiano, what difference does it make at this point?
Yeah, and I think that, I'll give Tennessee credit for this. Tennessee, for the longest time, even before the SEC mandated that you had to play tough teams every year out of conference, Tennessee's always taken pride in doing that. Now, part of that's because they had to go recruit nationally, really, to get players. But now with the way Nashville's growing, maybe that's not quite as important in the long run. But Tennessee's always had a point of pride in going and playing teams. But right now, I'd be thinking, who can I schedule? Who's the worst Power 5 team? And how much money do I have to pay them?
Yeah,
that would be what I would be thinking right now.
It wouldn't have been hard to find the 5 worst. The two of us could have come up with that in about 30 seconds. Wes, great to have you back. Really appreciate you making time for us.
No problem. Anytime, Paul.
Good stuff. Wes Rucker really bringing some interesting nuggets here from Knoxville. We're up against a break. We're not done with you. 30 minutes to go. Hope you'll give us a call.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Oh, we're back. Good to have everybody here. What a show it's been. Appreciate everybody being with us. Let's continue with more phone calls. Jimmy is up next in Chicago. Hello, Jimmy.
Hey, Paul. Well, I'm going to tell you, Lars Anderson could not have described the situation any better in regard to the fact that having the ability to be able to immediately recognize the alignment of defenses in when you walk up to the line of scrimmage, being able to process information after the ball's been snapped, and to make instantaneous decisions. That's something that can't be coached. That's got to be instinctive, and Tua's got it. And Jalen has always struggled with being able to recognize when a receiver's open, and so many times it's just too late by the time he recognizes the receiver's open, especially longer throws, the ball's behind the receiver and so forth. But in that spring game, I mean, it was just clear his confidence is shot. I mean, he's throwing the ball 5 yards behind receivers on slant patterns. Threw one to Najee, who wasn't a 7-8 yard pass in the flat, threw it at his feet. And I mean, he's just, his confidence is, he's just really struggling. Whereas last year in the 8-8 game, I thought he threw the ball really well.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's clear that he's just really regressed. And you were speaking earlier, about the mood down in New Orleans. Well, it was hardly a secret that since the LSU game, when the offense really struggled, Brian Dable had really been pushing hard for Tua to get, to get game reps. And, in that Clemson game, though, Paul, that people don't realize it was 10-6 midway through the third quarter.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, I had the mindset it wasn't because it wasn't close at the end, but you're right. That game was very tense.
And then when it was Jennings that came through and hit Brian as he was throwing Payne intercepted, and they went down there, and scored on the trick play to Payne, I believe. And then on the first play after the touchdowns when they got the pick six. So in a matter of about 60 to 90 seconds, it goes from 10-6 to 24-6.
Yeah.
And a lot of fans get, just fooled by the final score, thinking.
I'll be honest with you, Jimmy. I was like you. I was down there. I completely forgot that. I mean, the game just it all evaporates in your mind when you're not thinking about it.
Yeah. So really, when you think about it, all four playoff games, that Jalen has played in and started, I mean, the offense has not been good. And in that, in that Clemson, the championship game against Clemson, the reason the defense was on the field 100 plays is because Alabama could not convert third down.
No, they were terrible.
In the second half. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's just, it's one of those situations where I honestly think, and I know, he's got to get experience, but just looking at him, I can't believe how many national media people have tried to minimize what Tua did in the second half of that national championship game. The situation he encountered, the pressure that was involved, and the way he performed and responded, And all I hear is, I only threw one interception all year. Well, you're not going to throw interceptions if the first receiver is covered and you don't go through your progressions and you either tuck it in and run or you drift to the sideline and throw it out of bounds by 10 yards, you're not going to throw any interceptions. But you're also not going to produce points against elite teams. And Tua is not afraid to make plays, and that's obviously what they needed against Georgia. But his skill set, Paul, and his athletic ability, his throwing ability, his field instincts to recognize defenses and see what's happened after the ball snapped, I honestly think he could be the best quarterback Alabama's had since Stabler.
Hey, thanks for the call. Appreciate it, as always. Let's check in with William in Maryville. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Paul.
Great day. Yes, sir. How are you? Wonderful.
Well,
Thank you.
I'm great. This Jeremy Pruittâ thing, he's the boss. He's the CEO. We've had however many years of a clown parade led by a village idiot. And anybody who's upset, anybody who's upset about what he said needs to just take a deep breath and, give it a break. I mean, the man spoke his mind. I'm more concerned about whether the reports that the 65,000 folks that were supposedly there was overstated by the media or by the university. I'm more concerned about that than anything the coach.
You know what I want,
said.
William? I want the person who made that estimate make my estimate next year to the IRS.
You mean what you owe or what you don't owe? But Paul.
Then I'll leave it around so everybody can see it.
Yeah, we need a dose of reality. Tennessee needs a dose of reality. I'm glad they're playing West Virginia. I think they need a dose of reality, and I want a coach that patterns himself after Georgia and Alabama rather than somebody else. Let's strive to be the best, and let's have a coach that talks about that.
I'll tell you, I once I'll never forget. I was at Williams-Brice Stadium, maybe Spurrier's first or second year, and Auburn came in there on a Thursday night. They were number 2 in the country. South Carolina had a shot at the end of beating them, and they. I can't remember what happened, but Auburn barely escaped as a number 2 team in the country, and the crowd gave the team a standing ovation coming into the locker room. And guess what? You know what Spurrier did? He went ballistic. He said, "What are you guys doing? We lost the game. I don't want to hear." And he sent a message right then.
And there's another, I'm a boss, and I probably aggravate my employees 2 or 3 times a day with things I say. And that's what bosses do. He's the boss. We need to grow up. We need to realize we've had that clown parade led by that village idiot. And you know what I think about the money that's been spent over there. And I think it's time for Tennessee to get tough and get on down the road and quit worrying about little things like what Coach Pruitt said.
I like what you said. And again, I answered the question in response to a question earlier about what I thought of it, and I wasn't making I wasn't putting out a manifesto on but mistake in a big ocean. Big deal. We probably shouldn't even be talking about it again. And frankly, I was glad when Wes Rucker said he hasn't walked it back, because most of the time you would walk something like that back. So, well, I meant to say this.
No, why do people walk things back all the time? If you meant it when you said it, be honest about it, own up to it, and don't walk it back. We walk it back. Folks say things and then they think and they get all politically correct. And
because we all you're a boss. Most of us aren't. And
you're a boss. You're boss of your show.
I tell you what, if I'm a boss at this place, it is an insane asylum.
Maybe that's the clown parade led by the village idiots.
Because I think we just hired Butch. Frankly, that's the last I heard. We thought he was a nice guy.
Well, when you take a pay cut, you're paid 1% of your last salary. That's a pretty good pay cut, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. Hey, thanks for the call, William. As always, great to hear from you.
Take care.
Coming one of my favorite callers there from Maryville, or they say in East Tennessee, Marvel. We'll be right back. A couple more minutes to get your calls in here, and we are on the road to the break, and see you in a moment.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
Welcome back. We continue here on this Tuesday night. Will is up next in Missouri. Go right ahead, Will.
What's going on, Brother Paul?
We are doing well. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'm just driving through Missouri. I'm not from Missouri.
Okay, I hear you.
Here in about 4 miles, I'll be in the Sooner State. Look, I drive all over this country. First of all, let me say to Nick up in the Buckeye State, who likes to talk about people in mobile homes.
Oh, yeah.
I've driven through Ohio enough to know probably per square mile they've got more trailers up there than anywhere. So he needs to be careful about the glass house he lives in.
You bet.
But anyway, I'm glad I got in at the end of the show, because I don't want to beat a dead horse. I want to shoot the dang thing, put it in the ground, let's bury it. Jalen Hurts will not be the quarterback for Alabama. Nick Saban made that decision at halftime in the national championship game. He knew when he put him in what was going to happen. He knew what he was doing. For 2 years, Jalen Hurts he's the game manager that Greg McElroy was, and he's the legs of Blake Sims. Problem is, he left his arm in the locker room every game. It's just the facts of life. There's a quarterback behind him. Everybody on the team knows it. Brian Daboll even said after halftime it was like he was given the keys to a Ferrari. He opened the playbook up and it let it fly. Unfortunately, the game managing has to stop because everybody in the SEC and in the country figured out, shut down the run and you shut down Alabama because their quarterback cannot throw the ball. It's just plain simple math. If Jalen wants to stay on Alabama's football team, he needs to start focusing on another position. Maybe he can get into the NFL there. I love everything he did. He managed us for 2 years and got us to 2 college football playoffs. A quarterback, though, he is not.
Well said. Hey, Will, thanks for the call. We'll talk to you soon. Craig is up next in Chattanooga. Hello, Craig.
Hey, Paul. Today's a special day, not because we're just listening to you, but it's my fiance's birthday, and I was hoping that, she's listening, that you could wish her a happy birthday.
Craig, what's her name?
Yes, sir. Her name is Amber Wilson.
Well, we would be delighted. Happy birthday to Amber Wilson from everyone here on the Finebaum Show. Happy birthday.
Yeah. Oh, well, she's going to... Hold on, Paul. She's calling.
Okay.
Hold
on. She's calling.
Hello? Yeah, she's calling. Hello? Hey, babe. How you doing? Yeah, I was going to propose... Well, you know what? I love you so much. And, What? Your brother? Paul, I'm going to have to call you back, man.
Okay. Craig, listen, we apologize for getting in the way. I mean, we never want. I mean, we're trying to help. We wished Amber Wilson a happy birthday. She calls you right in the middle of the show to talk about her brother or something like that. Anyway, happy birthday anyway, Amber. We hope you have a great night. We hope all of you do as well. It's been a fun show. A lot of controversy and a lot of conversation.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network beginning at 3 Eastern.